Assalamu alaikum, this is Dr. Monel Idrisi, author of the Muslim Narcissist book and empowerment coach for Muslims. In today's podcast, I will be answering a very common question I receive, which is, did the narcissist ever love me? So this is one of the questions that I was asked in the previous Q&A, and I felt that it needed its own podcast because the answer isn't very straightforward. And I want to do this one differently today so that you yourselves answer this question. So I promise you, after I explain everything to you, you will be able to come up with the answer in your own case. And inshallah, it will give you the closure you need and a greater understanding, and it will also clear confusions. Okay, because I know this is a major problem. Many people will ponder on this for a very long time, and they will be torn between good memories, bad memories, things that were said, things that happened. Did they love me? Did they not love me? I'm sure they loved me because they did this, but at the same time they abused me. What does it mean? They must have, not meant it, or they must have had a very bad childhood for them to have acted like that. Maybe I didn't do enough to heal them and help them and fix them. So all of these thoughts go running through your head and they drive you crazy because a part of you really wants to believe that they loved you, and that's because you invested so much in them. So it's a very painful thought to face that after everything you did for them, they never loved you, right? So if you go on YouTube or you read books about psychology, you'll find that 95% of people, if not more than 95%, will tell you that the narcissist didn't love you at all. And that can be crippling for many people, especially if you're codependent, and especially if you invested a lot into that person to heal them and help them, and you saw them improve. Okay, so you want to know if this person did once love you, or if they love you now, if you are in a relationship with a narcissist at the moment. So I'll tell you that there are some who do and there are some who don't. And the way I'm going to explain it to you in this podcast is I'm going to talk about all the different types of love that are mentioned in Islamic literature, and then you can figure it out for yourself. Okay, you will know where to place the person whom you're with, whom you're questioning, if they love you or loved you or not. Okay, so you can apply this to all your relationships. You can apply this to your parents, your siblings, your friends, your husbands, your wives, fiancés, everybody. And you will be able to assess how they feel about you. So this explanation will come from an Islamic psychological perspective. So even if you're not Muslim, I do encourage you to listen to the end of this because you may find it fascinating to know that narcissism is addressed in Islam, and perhaps you may pinpoint as well what kind of love you have for the narcissist in your life. Okay, so this is not just about the love you receive or may not receive from the narcissist, but it's also about how you love the narcissist. And I'll tell you from now, you're going to find this shocking. Okay, it's going to shock you. So do listen to it to the end. Do take breaks if you need to, but this is one you really don't want to miss listening to. So just before I jump in, as always, please do like the podcast if it helps you. Do share it with people whom you feel could benefit from it. And do subscribe to the channel if you'd like to be notified about whenever a podcast is released. And you can also sign up to the mailing list on the website, and you'll receive emails whenever I release a podcast. Now, if you want to know beforehand when I'm going to drop a podcast, you can join me on Instagram. And I always drop information into the story about when the next podcast is going to be released. So I can't do that on YouTube. So if you want to know beforehand, just join the group, because I do get people saying to me, oh, I've been waiting this Friday for a podcast and you didn't drop one. I've been constantly checking your channel on Saturday morning and there's not been a podcast. So there will be weekends when I'm unable to. So if you want to know that I'm not going to drop one that particular weekend, just follow me on Instagram, okay? And if you're new to this channel and you haven't read the book yet, do grab a copy of The Muslim Narcissist. it will really help you in understanding the foundational information that I give that all of these podcasts are based on. All right, so let's jump into the subject. And you're going to want to buckle up for this one as well, because we are going to take a very deep dive into this subject. And by the end of the podcast, you'll have your answer, inshallah. So everything we learn in Islam comes from the Prophet ﷺ, because the Quran was revealed to him via Jibreel ﷺ. So when we learn about love, we learn about it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we also learn about it from the character of the Prophet ﷺ and how he dealt with other people. So the core foundation of love is found in his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know this from a hadith narrated by Jundub radiallahu anhu, who said that the Prophet ﷺ said, أن يكون لي منكم خليل فإن الله تعالى قد اتخذني خليلا كما اتخذ إبراهيم خليلا, which means, verily Allah Almighty has taken me as his best friend, just as he took Ibrahim alayhi as his best friend. So the Arabic word Khalil means the closest friend to you. Okay, the best, the one who loves you the most, and the one whom you love the most. So it was important for me to use this as the starting point, because only those two prophets were named as the best friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means that if Allah loves these two prophets the most, then these are the ones whom we have to hold in particular high regard, because Allah loves them. And when you love someone, you love everyone who loves that person as well. So Allah loved all the prophets, but these two in particular had a special place with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because Allah knew that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ didn't love anyone more than him, he commanded us to follow him. Okay, so we will be safe following someone and loving someone and being guided by someone who loves Allah the most in his life. Okay, so in Surah Al-Imran, Ayah 31, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبْكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرُ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Say, O Prophet, to the people, if you sincerely love Allah, then follow me. Allah will love you and forgive your sins, for Allah is all forgiving, most merciful. And he also says in Surah An-Nisa, Ayah 59, يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. O you who have believed, obey Allah and obey the Messenger and those in authority among you. So this is in order. Okay, so Allah comes first, and then the Prophet ﷺ, and then those in authority. And what this means is that Allah's laws and the Prophet's guidance come before the authority of the people around us. So if we were to be told to do something that is in opposition to what Allah tells us to do and what the Prophet ﷺ tells us to do, then we do not obey the person in authority. We take it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his Prophet. So in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to say, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ إِن كُنتُمْ تُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ وَأَحْسَنُ تَأْوِيلًا. And if you disagree over anything amongst yourselves, refer it to Allah and the Messenger, if you believe in Allah and the last day. That is the best way to solve problems and the best in result. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing the believers here, that they should love Allah the most, and then the Prophet, and then the people who are in authority. So for example, your parents, or your husband, or the Khalifa, and so on. So there's another hadith where Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu said that the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من ولده ووالده والناس أجمعين. So none of you have faith until I am more beloved to him than his children and his parents and all the other people. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us here is that the core foundation of love is based on respect, loyalty, prioritization, pure love, that best friend kind of love, and sacrifice. Okay, because if there's no sacrifice, you can't show love. So in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wants us to show loyalty to Him. So we are not mushrikeen, right? We do not commit shirk. We do not assign partners to Him. We're loyal to Him. We give Him respect as our creator. We prioritize Him in our life. We treat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as our best friend when making dua, when we pray, and we sacrifice our desires for His sake. For example, when we sacrifice food and drink during Ramadan to please Allah, and also when we sacrifice sins, right? We might be tempted to do things, but because we love Allah, because we prioritize our loyalty to Allah, we abstain from the sins. And these are considered to be sacrifices, okay? Because our nafs wants them, but we sacrifice them for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is what love is, right? This is what love is, because it elevates us and it helps us to grow into better people and better Muslims and better believers. And when we do that, when we elevate our nafs to a very high status, we start to love ourselves. Right, you feel proud of yourself. That's the foundation of self-love. So if you do not prioritize Allah and His Prophet, you cannot love yourself. Okay, it's not possible as a Muslim. So Allah's telling us that when we love Him in this way, because He's taught us how He wants to be loved via His relationship with the Prophet ﷺ. If we love Him in the same kind of way, then we build a very strong attachment to Him, which is healthy for our self-value. Okay, so our value needs to be rooted in being Muslim believers. And when you're a Muslim believer with a great character, you're going to feel great about yourself. You're not going to hate yourself. You're going to be proud of who you are. You're going to have a very strong character. And you're going to earn His love, His pleasure, and His rewards. And among these rewards is the protection from temptation. You'll notice a lot of people who are very close to Allah don't even have any inclination towards sin. They don't want to go to clubs. They don't want to commit zina. They don't want to drink. They have no desire to smoke. They have no desire to do anything that displeases Allah. So you'll find that they have no interest in what the majority of people have an interest in. And this is a major sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you, when you have no desire to sin. Or at least don't have the desire to commit the major sins. Okay, so you easily avoid them. You easily obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these matters. So if you attach your self-worth to the love you get from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ, you're going to be amongst those who are Muslim believers. Remember when I told you before in previous podcasts that there is a difference between being Muslim and a believer, and it's actually rare to find people who are Muslim believers, because to be a Muslim believer, you need to have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the priority in your life every day. And you need to have the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ as a priority in your life every day. So if you are Muslim, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not come first, and the Prophet ﷺ does not come second, then other people will be replacing them. And if other people replace Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you've committed shirk. Okay, that's when you fall into shirk. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Ayah 92, وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ وَاحْذَرُوا فَإِن تَوَلَّيْتُمْ فَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا عَلَى رَسُولِنَا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينُ. So obey Allah and obey the Messenger and beware. But if you turn away, then know that our Messenger's duty is only to deliver the message clearly. So Allah's not forcing you to obey Him, and He's not forcing you to obey the commands of the Prophet ﷺ. It's just a warning that if you don't, you're going to be lost. If you don't, you're going to lose your sense of worth. If you don't, you're going to start attaching your self-worth to other things that are not sustainable. They're not strong enough. Or you might attach your self-worth to other people. That's when you become codependent. And you think, well, if I get the love of these people, then I'll become a somebody. If I have this trophy husband or this trophy wife, I'm going to be a somebody. So Allah gives you the choice. We always have the choice. But if you do not prioritize Allah and the Prophet, ﷺ, then it's not possible for you to be a believer. And it's not possible for your nafs to be elevated. And it won't be possible for you to find a very grounded sense of worth. And when you have a grounded sense of worth, you're happy. And you're content and you're proud of yourself. That is where the core foundation of self-love comes from. I'll say it again. Because this is sustainable, right? The faith you have, the good character you have, and the love you have for those whom you're meant to follow will last you a lifetime. If you hold on to those, you won't get lost. You won't turn narcissistic and hate yourself. You will not be somebody who is not considered a believer. Okay, so if this is your core foundation, if this is who makes you you, then you can't go wrong, right? You start building on this. So there will be loads of things that you do in life that will add to your self-worth, such as your career, or such as your family status, such as your financial success, such as your great sense of humor, and so on. So as you go through life, you will start to pick up on things, your talents, your skills, and these will add to what you already have. Okay, and that's what makes you a very high value person, because you're utilizing all the rizq that's coming your way, especially if you have talents and skills. If you're utilizing them in a positive way, this will add to your self-worth. It will add to your self-esteem. And you'll always feel that it's okay if you lose anything in life, because if the core foundation is your love for Allah and the Prophet ﷺ, then it doesn't matter what you lose. Your self-worth doesn't change. Your self-worth doesn't diminish like it does with many other people who attach their self-worth to money, or they attach it to other people, or they attach it to their career. These are all things you can lose, right? You can also lose your faith, but you're very unlikely to lose your faith if you love Allah more than anyone, and if you love the Prophet ﷺ more than the people in your life. You're unlikely to lose it. But if your foundation is shaky and it's based on something that's not sustainable and it's not guaranteed to last, then you are going to crumble. You're going to break apart. And you'll always look for things that will give you self-worth. That's why narcissists always look for trophies. They always look for things and people who prop them up when their self-esteem is completely broken. And codependents are the same. Okay, so I'm explaining all of this to you so that you can put yourself in the category of being narcissistic, codependent, or a Muslim believer, because this is what determines who you bring into your life or whom you allow to enter your life. Okay, remember, it's always a decision that we make. So when you know where your self-worth lies and what it's attached to, then you'll be able to make more sense of the people whom you choose to keep in your life and those whom you prioritize as well. Okay? Now, in Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayah 165, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَتَّخِذُ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ أَنْدَادًا يُحِبُّونَهُمْ كَحُبِّ اللَّهِ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَشَدُّ حُبًّا لِلَّهِ. And yet among the people are those who take other than Allah as equals to Him. They love them as they should love Allah. But those who believe are stronger in love for Allah than others. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us here that there will be people who prioritize people above Allah and love those people like they should love Allah. Those are the people who are misguided. You're going to get lost. You're going to lose your self-worth. You're going to lose yourself in those relationships. And Allah says, those who are true believers follow the footsteps and the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ, and they love whom the Prophet loves. So if you look at the relationship we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's double-sided, right? We do things for Him and Allah rewards us with rizq. We get blessings in return. We get rewards in return. So it's not a slave-master relationship we have with Him. Yes, we are called Abid Allah. We are the slaves of Allah, but not in the tyrannical sense. We are to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by choice. Okay, so a slave in human terms means someone who has to obey their master by force. They've got no choice. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not force us to obey Him. Allah gives us the choice. We can obey Him and His Prophet, or we can choose not to, but we face the consequences of that. So we actually accept to be a slave of Allah because of His love for us. Right? If you were to be a slave to a human master, he's not going to love you in the same way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to love you. He won't. It's impossible. The master is always horrible, always tyrannical with the slave because they look down upon the slave, whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks upon us with mercy and love because we have chosen to prioritize Him, we have chosen to worship Him and love Him more than anyone else and more than anything else, including money, fame, luxury, all of that. Okay, we love Him more than all of that. So if we were to lose all of that, we still have His love for us and we have our love for Him. And if we were to die in that state, we go straight to Jannah. Because what better state is there to be in at the time of death than the state of knowing that you did everything in your power to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every aspect of your life and in every aspect of your worship. Okay, so when we do things for the sake of Allah, we do them with the best character and we do them with halal and haram in mind. So when you apply for a job, you've got to make sure that it's a company that's lawful to work for, you're going to gain a halal income. And when you get married to someone who also has the same principles as you, the same values. They also love Allah more than anyone. They also have the Prophet ﷺ as a priority in their life. Okay, so following his sunnah and following his guidance and having him as a role model in your life. Okay, it's very easy to see when a man truly has him as his role model. You'll see it in his character, you'll see it in his conduct, you'll see it in his attitude, you'll see it in his maturity, right? In his wisdom and his intelligence, and that applies to women as well. So it really does affect your life when you have Allah and His Messenger as your two best friends in life. Okay, so just to quickly recap, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us that love encompasses these things: respect, loyalty, prioritization, pure love, the best friend kind of love, and sacrifice. And this can be applied to all relationships. And the romance part of it, between husband and wife, or any relationship between man and woman, when they fall in love, is going to be explained later in this podcast. Okay, so I just wanted to set the core foundation of this podcast on this knowledge so that it will help you make sense of your relationship later with the narcissist. Okay, now not everyone you meet in life is going to have a best friend relationship with you. I'm talking about people who are very important to you. You can have great relationships with people whom you're not close with, like your neighbours, colleagues at work, people you meet, strangers, you can always be civil and kind and loving to them, but you don't have to treat them like a best friend. You don't have to give them that trust and that level of loyalty. So this is mainly about those who maybe have authority over you, like your parents and your husband, or who are close to you, like your siblings and your friends. Okay, this is how you establish a very healthy relationship with them based on these principles and values. So if the people in authority over you treat you with this type of love, you'll have no problem whatsoever obeying anybody or showing loyalty or compliance to anyone, because when it's done in this manner, you will love them so much regardless, even if you have to listen to them, even if they have more of a say over yours, you'll still accept it because you know they're doing everything out of love. And more importantly, you know that they love Allah and His Messenger more than they love you. Okay, so this brings me on to the important point that I'd like to make about being around people who have a correct understanding of Islam. Because there are many abusers who will say that you have to obey me because I am following Allah and His Messenger, but their version of Islam is very twisted and corrupt and it's very oppressive. Okay, so you'll get loads of men who do this especially, and they'll say you have to do this and you have to do that because Allah said so and the Prophet said so, but their understanding of Islam is twisted. They're taking so many things out of context. Maybe their understanding of Islamic text is very misogynistic. Maybe it's very harsh. It's abusive. Okay, it's not meant to be understood in that way, but because of their character, because of their high narcissism, they interpret and see Islamic texts in their own way. So when looking for a husband or wife to have an intimate relationship with, you really need to take into consideration their understanding of Islam, because it's going to make or break your relationship. If you both have different understandings of Islam, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. You need to be with someone who has a very loving outlook on Islam, because if they are harsh and if they're difficult and if they're too strict, you're going to struggle and you're going to be miserable and you're going to find it very difficult to comply with obedience and to fulfill your duties towards them because you don't love them and you don't respect them. So meeting each other on the same level of Islamic understanding is critical for your happiness. Okay, and it's critical for you to be able to maintain a very long-lasting marriage with someone. Because if you don't, I'm telling you, it won't last. The marriage won't last. And even if it does, whether it's long or short, it's going to be extremely toxic. And you might even lose your faith at the end of it because you're going to get so sick of being abused in the name of Islam, whether you're a man or a woman. I've come across way too many people who have left Islam as a result of this. Okay, so when I talk about the love that someone has to have for Allah and His Messenger as the core foundation for your self-worth, then it has to be the correct and loving and merciful understanding of Islam. Because I promise you, I have seen so many people with this very harsh understanding of Islam, and they claim to follow the right understanding of Islam, but they are so hard-hearted, they are cruel, they have bad character, they're narcissistic, they don't treat people well, but they say they follow Allah and His Prophet, and they quote Quran and Hadith all the time to prove a point, but they do not present the character of a true believer who is calm and pleasant and loving and nurturing and all of those things. They don't have it in them. They have a very difficult character. They do not have self-love, these people, because they enforce upon themselves a very difficult and harsh understanding of Islam that makes them hard-hearted, and they see it. But out of stubbornness, and because they don't love themselves, they inflict it upon themselves. Okay, all these staunch Salafis, I'm telling you, they are the most miserable Muslims I've ever come across in my life, because they are forcing themselves into an interpretation of Islam that makes life difficult, and it makes them bitter people. It makes them angry people, because they don't find love and they don't find self-love in what they believe in. Okay, so what they're constantly preaching, there's no love in there. So how can you be happy as a person when you're constantly preaching something that is void of love? Because all you keep saying is, if you don't do this, you're going to get punished. And if you don't do this, you're going to go to hell. And you put it on repeat. And you judge people with it. And you inflict this on other people. So no wonder why you're miserable. Because if this is how you see Allah, to be a creator who is tyrannical and who will throw you into hell for any minor sin that you commit, then you have a serious problem with your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, you have a serious problem with it and you need to deal with it. Because as long as you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that way, the majority of the time, you're going to have many issues within yourself as well. Because the same way you look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is how you're going to look at yourself. Okay, you're not going to look at yourself with love and compassion and mercy and care. You're always going to be harsh on yourself. And when you're harsh on yourself, you can't experience the joy of Islam. You cannot experience the true pleasure of being a practicing Muslim and living life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and having Him as a priority. It will always be a burden upon you. And it will be a burden upon the people around you, because you are inflicting your understanding of Islam that is so poor on others. So you're making others miserable with you as well. So it's really important that you address that if you are struggling with self-love. Look at your understanding of Islam. Look at how you perceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you want to have better relationships with people, you need to fix your relationship with Allah and how you see Allah. And you also need to fix your relationship with the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, because when you interpret things that he does in the wrong way, you actually offend him, right? You're not gaining any of his pleasure. You're not going to find his pleasure on the Day of Judgment, because you are the one who is teaching the wrong understanding of the hadith to other people. And this is a very harsh understanding that hurts the way that people see the Prophet ﷺ, okay? There are many hadiths taken out of context. There are many hadiths that have been fabricated. On the Day of Judgment, the Prophet ﷺ will take his rights from you. He'll take his rights from you because you distorted a beautiful message he was trying to send his people, and you turned it into something ugly. You turned it into something misogynistic. You turned it into something cruel. Okay, like I can list many hadiths that people do this to, maybe in another podcast, inshallah, but you know which ones I'm talking about. Okay, you know which ones I'm talking about. He will take his rights from you on the Day of Judgment if you do that. You've got to be very careful who you follow when it comes to taking Islamic knowledge, and you've got to be very careful, even more careful, when it comes to marrying someone who has a very different understanding of Islam or a harsh understanding of Islam. Okay, so don't be impressed by their outward portrayal of being very practicing. You can pray tahajjud every single night, but if he has this understanding of Islam and his or her heart is hard and they're judgmental and they're miserable and they don't laugh and they don't have a good life and everything is haram, everything is a fitna, everything is a bid'ah, yeah, you're going to want to avoid those people. Okay, because they are the most miserable people I have ever met. So be very careful when it comes to this, because you will never be able to have a relationship based on true love with anyone like this. And if you are this person, then please look into improving your education. Okay, seek knowledge and follow more empathic scholars whose teachings will help you to actually grow a very deep love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and a far more empathic understanding of Islam. I promise you'll be a much happier person, and you won't hate yourself so much. Because if you're narcissistic or toxic codependent, you are definitely going to hate yourself. There is no way you can wriggle out of that. Okay, it's a fact. Every narcissistic person and every toxic codependent hates themselves in their core because they don't have a solid empathic foundation on which they can base their self-value on. So what you consume in information is what you're going to give out. So if you're consuming wrong information about Islam and you give it out, you will become a very judgmental person. People won't like you. People won't want to be around you. And you'll start to feel hate and bitterness towards other people. Okay, even if you think you're super religious, you will know exactly what I'm talking about if you are one of these people. Okay, I'm saying this out of love because I want you to get the help you need so that you can become happier and healthier in your mindset and in your heart and in your nafs. Okay, so do work on that, inshallah, if you have that issue, because the love you have for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ is actually meant to make you happier. It's meant to make you a peaceful person, a more empathic person, more loving, more kind, more pleasant to be around. People will love you and all of that. If you're not growing as a human being, as a Muslim, as a believer, then you're not following the correct understanding of Islam. Because if you're going backwards, okay, if you're going backwards and you're a hypocrite behind closed doors and you're struggling to practice your faith and you're feeling bitter at practicing the faith to the level of strictness you're at, then you're going to be miserable. You're going to be more narcissistic. You're going to be unpleasant to be around, and you're not going to have a best friend relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, most of your worship rituals will be chores, and you won't find any deep spirituality in your prayers. And when you make dua, when you fast Ramadan, it's not going to be there. You're going to be void of that spiritual connection. Okay, that's the difference. That's how you know if you're following the correct understanding of Islam or not. Because Islam is not meant to be hard. Okay, it's not meant to make your life harder or make you miserable. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Taha, Ayah 2, مَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْقُرْآنَ لِتَشْقَى. And we have not sent down to you, O Prophet, the Qur'an, so that you be distressed or to make your life hard. Okay, the Qur'an was sent to you as a mercy and as guidance and as love from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He is the best friend of the Prophet ﷺ, and the Qur'an was sent down as a gift to him and to the rest of mankind. So it wasn't sent down as a difficulty with all these rules. Every rule that we are meant to obey and follow is for our own benefit. Okay, when Allah tells us to avoid certain things, it's for our benefit, not because He wants to punish us if we do them. It's because out of love for us, He doesn't want us to face the consequences of what will happen that comes as a result of us ignoring His warnings. Okay, so when we commit sins, we face the consequences, and that can hurt, right? It can be painful, especially when we go through a very difficult hardship that comes as a result of committing a particular sin. Okay, so this section is the most important part of the podcast, and I'd like you to identify where to place yourself and also where to place the narcissist whom you are inquiring about in regards to whether they loved you or love you or not. So are they people who prioritize Allah and His Prophet ﷺ, or are they not? Okay, that will give you a huge indication of what's to come. So like I said before, Islamic literature contains loads of examples of different types of love, and these examples are taken from people who lived in the time of the Prophet ﷺ and people who lived after his death. And some examples will also be taken from his own experiences of love. So I'm going to go through them now, and I suggest that you have a pen and paper ready at hand so you can jot down some notes so you can see where to best place yourself and the narcissist for a better understanding of how you feel about them and how they feel about you. So the first type is attachment. Okay, so this is when someone is validated by someone else. So for example, someone might tell a woman, "Oh, you're very beautiful." And because she doesn't hear it often, she now becomes attached to that person, and she likes that person because they compliment and validate her in a way that other people don't. The same thing happens with men. So for example, someone might compliment him on being very smart. He now becomes attached to that person who is validating and complimenting him, and it's a cause for him to keep texting that person. Okay, because his ego is getting stroked by them. He's getting the validation that he needs to feel good about himself. Okay, so this is someone who doesn't have a lot of self-worth, and he relies on other people's praise and compliments to feel good. So these people stay in contact with you because you make them feel good about themselves. So there is no love in this relationship at all. Now, when you become attached to someone and you're really enjoying their praise and their validation, what will happen here with codependence is that they will want to save this person. So if they see someone is troubled for their own selfish reasons to feel good about themselves, they will jump in and attempt to fix the person whom they're with. Okay? And they do this because they feel they have to pay back. So thank you for all this praise and all these compliments and all this validation. I now need to do something to make me feel good about myself, and that's me fixing you. Okay, so it's just an attachment. There's no love. You now take this person on as a project. Okay, you see a broken person and you want to keep this person around because they make you feel good. And you're thinking, well, what am I good at? What am I good at? Oh, I'm good at fixing people. I'm good at being there for people. I'm a people pleaser. I go out of my way to do things for others and I neglect myself. I'm going to do this for this person to keep them around. Okay, so you believe your self-worth lies in fixing people. And that's why you keep someone around who gives you breadcrumbs, but there's no love. This person is now enjoying the fact that you are doing so much for them, but you're actually doing it for yourself to make you feel good. Because not only are you not comfortable with receiving, okay, you don't know how to receive love, you don't know how to receive acts of service. When someone compliments or validates you, you feel like you have to pay back and give back, so you do that. And this can escalate into you doing so much for this person who is narcissistic, and they're lapping it all up, and they're thinking, well, he or she is doing all this for me and I'm not even giving them much, right? I'm not investing in them. I'm not making any effort for them. I don't have to do anything. I don't even have to love them. I just have to keep giving them validation and praise. They're clearly starved of it, right? They're clearly starved of compliments and all of that. So I'm just going to continue with that. I don't need to give them love. I don't need to give them anything. So that's how you become attached to somebody. And it becomes a very frustrating relationship because you realize later on down the line that there's no emotional connection. You realize later that you're getting peanuts, breadcrumbs from this person in return for all the effort you are making to fix them and make them happy, and you're, serving them and you're running around in circles for them and so on. So these relationships always end badly. And they end badly because when you ask the narcissistic individual to fix up and make effort to invest in you, they turn around and say, why should I? All this time I've been getting it for free. I've been paying peanuts for it. You want me to actually pay full price for it now? You want me to go and make all the effort that you need now? A year down the line? No, I'm not having it. So they walk away. Okay, they're not up for it. They walk away because they're like, well, if I can't get it for free and if I can't get it cheap, then I don't want to be here. So the codependent here crashes, okay, because there's no love. There's no love, there's no loyalty, there's no prioritization, there's no sacrifice, nothing. There's no love. So they walk away very easily. And when they do this, they trigger the abandonment trauma of the codependent. And the codependent starts chasing the narcissist and begging them to come back, and only to resume the same cycle. So sometimes the codependent is so terrified of being alone because they're so attached now. There's an unhealthy attachment to this narcissist whom they've gotten so used to, right? And there's daily communication, and the narcissist is only allowing this daily communication to happen because they are getting so much more than what they're putting in. So they're like, this is a fantastic source of supply. I'm not getting rid of this source of supply. I'm keeping her or him around. But you end up making more effort to keep this narcissist in your life because they trigger your abandonment issues. And when that happens, the narcissist gets away with being very low effort. And they get away with having to show you no love and no loyalty or anything whatsoever. So loads of people get trauma bonded to these narcissists, thinking they're in love, thinking that this is, the best relationship, when actually it's these relationships that have no love in them whatsoever. But you think they have love. Okay, you think it's love. But when you actually look at what they're investing into the relationship, you realize that it's hardly anything. It's peanuts. Right? When you compare what you're putting into the relationship with what they're putting in, you'll understand it's just attachment, and a very unhealthy attachment at that. Now, the second type is lustful infatuation. Okay, this causes someone to chase someone whom they are very attracted to. Okay, so when the chemistry is strong, you feel the need to chase this person and you become obsessed with them. And these relationships are usually purely sexual relationships. Okay, so they're hookups. There's no love. It's just you're both fulfilling the sexual needs of the other, and it's nothing more than that. Okay, it's nothing more than lust and chemistry. So the entire relationship you have with this individual depends on the chemistry lasting between you two, and it depends also on the attraction being maintained. So in these relationships, it's very easy for a man to lose interest if he finds someone more beautiful, right? If you've put on weight, if you don't look the same as you used to, a man will easily exit this situation for something better. And the same goes for women as well, because it's a purely physical relationship. So you won't find loyalty here. These people always cheat on each other. And if it's in marriage, you'll find that the man wants more than one wife because he's on a sexual conquest. And all he cares about is increasing his sexual experiences and fulfilling his needs. And when it comes to women, what they normally do is, if it's in the context of marriage, and I believe these marriages are invalid, she gets involved in a string of temporary marriages so she can have many sexual experiences with different people within the context of it being halal. It's not halal, but it makes her feel better that she's not doing anything haram by doing it this way. Okay, they justify it in their own minds that this way of getting married is honorable in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when it's clearly not. Okay, so type 1 and type 2, both of them are not believers. You're engaging with people who are not believers. These are not people who put Allah and the Prophet ﷺ as priorities in their lives. Okay, they are following their desires. And you'll notice as well that in sexual relationships, there's not much love bombing that goes on. Okay, they don't have to go out of their way to impress you with effort, because it's enough that you are attractive enough to them to want to be with you. So if a man finds a woman highly attractive and she finds him highly attractive, there's nothing else that's needed to be done. He doesn't have to buy her gifts. He doesn't have to take her out somewhere fancy. He doesn't have to do anything. They have a mutual interest in each other, so there's no need for love bombing. And that's why narcissists love sexual conquests, because the effort is so minimal in these as a result of mutual benefits being met, because they both want the same thing from each other. So when it's just based on the physical, that's all you're going to get out of this relationship. And these relationships also end badly. Okay, they never end on a positive note. They always end in heartbreak, betrayal, and someone eventually being brutally discarded. And this leads to them having their self-esteem completely shattered by this narcissistic individual, especially if this person has moved on to someone who is more attractive. So in both of these relationships, don't expect anyone to be God-fearing or behave in a way that indicates they love Allah. Now, the third type of love that you can experience is falling in love. Now, there are two ways people do this. One, suddenly, and two, over time. So the people who fall in love suddenly are usually attracted to the exterior, which means you fall in love with someone's beauty, or you fall in love with someone's lavish lifestyle, or you fall in love with someone because they're hilarious, right? They're super funny, and you find yourself suddenly falling for this person. This type of falling in love will lead you towards a very rocky relationship, because you are basing your feelings on the exterior. However, people who fall in love over time tend to fall in love with your character. So you grow on them over time, right? They fall in love with who you are as a person. And this is a much healthier and happier type of falling in love, because it's not sudden and it's done with thought. You're aware of what's going on. You are aware that you are starting to develop feelings for someone, and you now experience the joy of falling in love because it's on a deeper level, right? You're observing someone's character. You're observing how they interact with other people. You're observing how kind they are to others, how good they are with children, and so on. And you think, I really like this person. I'm starting to develop feelings for them. So this is considered to be healthy type of love, and it's the type of love that allows a marriage to last. Unlike infatuation, when people fall in love with people's beauty and then that fades, right? That fades with bad character. That fades when you start getting really sick of dealing with these people and their narcissism. Their beauty fades away. It disappears, and you no longer have anything left, because what you loved so much about them was something that could easily fade or disappear. So the word falling is negative, okay, because you can fall and hurt yourself. You can fall and get stuck. You can fall into a deep well and not be able to get yourself out of it. But when you're careful about falling for someone, and you know you're making a wise decision about somebody, you're less likely to fall and hurt yourself, okay? You're less likely to fall and get yourself into trouble. So here it's important to note that the people who fall suddenly and for exterior reasons, right, for materialistic reasons or superficial reasons, fall because they are either narcissistic or codependent. Okay, they are the people who fall hard and fast. Now, when it comes to empaths, they're different. An empath will take their time. An empath isn't easily impressed by the exterior. Remember when I told you before? Empaths are more spiritual. I'm talking about the true empaths who admire people who are wise. They admire people who are grounded, healed. They admire people who have deen, they have love for Allah and the Prophet ﷺ. They value all of those things. So when they see someone beautiful, the empath will ask themselves, and then what? What's behind that? What am I going to get from this person's beauty if they don't have everything else that makes them a wonderful person? So the codependent and the narcissist here will fall head over heels because they are picking up on what they're missing in life. Okay, so if you feel like you're missing beauty, you don't feel that beautiful, you're going to value people who are very beautiful. If you don't have money, you're going to value people who have it because they can offer that to you and upgrade your life. You're always going to fall for what you're missing. Unlike the overt narcissist likes to go for people who are like them. So if they're rich, they go for rich people. If they're very good looking, they also go for very good looking people. The overt narcissists are not dangerous at all, but they prefer to socialize amongst each other. So they don't like to be with covert narcissists, and they do not like to be with codependents, okay? But they will value a high level empath because this person is still a part of their satanic mission to target, okay? And this empath can also be a trophy if they are famous, if they are particularly beautiful, and so on. And sometimes they could target a low-level codependent, so they're more on the empathic side, and they come from royal lineage, or they are elites, right, aristocrats, or their father is famous, right, a famous film star or whatever. They will target those people as well, and they will always do their best to mold that person so that they fit into their life. So you will often find with overt narcissists, the women who fall in love with them tend to lean towards their lifestyle, tend to become like them over time. So they become narcissistic, they become very overt, they become very vain because of spending so much time with overt narcissists in their environment. Okay, I've seen it happen a few times, and you see it a lot with celebrities as well. You see an overt narcissist marry a celebrity, and she's clearly codependent or highly empathic, and over time she turns narcissistic. So this is what happens to a lot of codependent women who don't have enough self-value and self-esteem. When they fall in love with the film star, the celebrity, the famous influencer, when they fall in love with these overt narcissists who have so much confidence, right? They might have wealth, whatever. They could be royals, elites. They will sacrifice a lot of their principles when they fall in love. And that's why the codependent woman and man will lose themselves when they fall in love, because you are going for something you're missing in your life. A lot of empathic women, they end up with man children, and the same is vice versa with men who go for women children. They end up with them because they want to prop up their status in society. So for example, an empathic woman might accept to have a narcissistic man-child in her life and baby him and parent him and everything because he comes from a family that's very well known. He comes from an elite family. He comes from a royal family. And he might be so spoiled and pampered, and he's an absolute brat, right? He's a 7-year-old child in that man's body, and she's dealing with it because maybe her father was absent in her life, and she wanted to prove to society that just because I don't have a father, just because I don't have male relatives, I can marry someone of status. She has something to prove to society. It could be just that she can get married, right? Just because, I've been raised by a single mother or been raised by a single father doesn't mean I can't marry men like other women can, and like all my friends can who are from privileged backgrounds. So a lot of women will actually be more tolerant and more patient with a man-child, sometimes a malignant narcissist as well, if he comes from a very prestigious background, because she's proving something to society that I am worthy of having someone like this, but she gets destroyed in the process because the marriage is terrible. Okay, and her relationship is terrible. There's no love, there's nothing. She's mothering this guy, and he's not giving her what she needs, but to the outside world, she's done well. And lots of men do this as well. That's why sometimes they will marry a woman child who comes from a very wealthy background, so they can say, look at me, I don't come from a family that's wealthy, but I managed to get a woman whose father is the CEO of, Apple, right? He has something to brag about because he's got something to prove to society. So sometimes an empathic / codependent woman will fall in love with a man's status. Okay, he's come to her, flirting with her, he's interested in her. She's like, he's a good-looking guy, and he comes from that family. He comes from this background, he comes from this culture. Sometimes it's culture and ethnicity that causes someone to fall in love, Because if this person comes from a culture or ethnic background that is considered to be appealing to society, right, then it's like, wow, look what I've managed to get myself. So you fall in love with that. Okay, so for example, you might see someone from an Arab or Asian background, and if they manage to land themselves a revert, for example, who's European, she will be his trophy, because in his eyes, he has put the European culture and the European ethnicity on a pedestal. So in his society, everyone's like, oh wow, look at him, he married a beautiful woman, she's got white skin and blue eyes and blonde hair. And that's what he fell in love with. He fell in love with the fact she has those things. And like I said, those relationships rarely last. And if they do last, they're not happy. So they will be living through very miserable marriages. And they have to stick with it because they are still getting so much validation and praise from the outside world. Okay, people are like, wow, I didn't imagine that he would marry someone like that. Or I didn't imagine that she would end up with a royal or an elite or someone who is wealthy. Like that woman who was raised in a very poor household. How did she get him? They love it. Codependents love to hear this from society. It gives them an ego boost. Okay, codependents have ego needs as well, right? So you've got to be careful. You've got to ask yourself, every time you fall in love with someone, ask yourself, what is it that I find appealing about this person? Is it because I'm missing something in my life? Or am I trying to prove something to people? Or am I trying to prove to myself that I'm worthy of having this man or this woman? You've got to ask yourself, because the intention behind falling for someone, okay, now some people say it's not in our hands who we fall in love with. No, it is. It is. Because if you do not look into the reasons why you are attracted to the same types of people, you will not be able to change the type of person you fall in love with. So it's actually in your hands. Now, who we love on a deep level, that's not in our hands. That's in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands. But who we are attracted to, who we are inclined to, that can change. We can change that. When we actually sit and ask ourselves, why is it that I am always attracted to the same type of person, and every time I get into a relationship with this type of person, it never works out? Why? And that's when you start digging and exploring, and then you find the reason, and you can change it. It's in your hands to change who you are attracted to. Okay, I promise you, once you heal, the type of person you're attracted to will completely change. Completely change. You might be repulsed. Actually, you probably will be repulsed at your old type when you heal. Because you will realize that you were looking at that person from a very unhealthy lens. So you were falling in love with people from an unhealthy, unhealed perspective. Okay, you are operating from a very unhealed nafs. And when your nafs is unhealed, when it's broken, when it's lost, of course you're going to attract the wrong types of people. Okay, because empaths will know you're not the right people for them. They can see a broken nafs. They can see an unhealed nafs. And empaths will help you, but not in the context of marriage. They will not take you on as a marriage partner, but they'll be more than happy to help you and give you advice and encouragement and teach you things here and there. Okay, that's the difference. A codependent wants to jump in and be the savior. They want to fix you. They want to heal you. They want to marry you so that your life can be better. That's not how it works. You're going to be miserable if you do that with someone. This is someone's inner work to do. It's not your job to save them. The Prophet ﷺ was not given a mission to fix people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him that your only mission is to convey the message. That's it. Whoever wants to accept can accept. Whoever doesn't want to accept doesn't have to accept. They'll face the consequences because they'll be lost in life. They'll be misguided. So it's not his job to fix broken people and to fix people who haven't done the inner work to heal themselves. And it's the same with us. So if that wasn't the mission of the Prophet ﷺ, then it's definitely not ours. So when you see someone is unhealed and they haven't got the therapy for it, they're lazy about getting therapy, and doing the inner work and making all the required efforts needed for them to progress in life, don't go near those people. Okay, they have to figure it out for themselves. They need to do the inner work. It's jihad and nafs. They have to do the inner work. Never take on a project. Never take on potential. Never take on someone who clearly wants you to do the work for them. So if you pamper them and mother them and father them, if you do all of that, then they've got no reason to do the work. They're getting everything on a golden plate handed to them without them having to heal. So if they want someone high value, they're going to have to do the work to obtain that type of person, to reach that type of person. Okay, because healed people only want healed people to marry. And healed people fall in love with people over time. Okay, so when you're not healed, you'll fall in love very quickly. And that's why loads of people get married multiple times. They're in and out of relationships all the time. Every week they're falling in love with someone. They fall in love with celebrities. Oh, I've got a crush on him. I've got a crush on her. Because they're not healed. When you're healed, I promise you, you take time and you observe everything about this person for you to be sure that they are the right person for you. Before you get involved emotionally with this person, before you invest financially and with your energy and with your efforts, empaths want to know that they are going to be putting these things in the right person because they don't want to get hurt, right? They don't want to have a whirlwind romance with anyone. They want to make sure that this person is going to protect their heart. So they take a longer time to fall in love. So codependents and narcissists do not. Okay, they see supply and they see opportunities. So when someone starts to develop feelings for someone, you enter a very vulnerable state. Okay, and when you're vulnerable, you are now easily manipulated because you are now infatuated with someone's beauty. Men in this stage of love are easily manipulated by women. And even before there's any halal commitment between the two of them, he's already, doing everything he can to make her happy. He's bringing her the moon and the sun. He's sending her so much money. I have a client who said to me that he sent his wife £50,000 before he married her when they were in a relationship because he was so in love with her. He was so infatuated with her beauty. He was willing to do anything to keep her. He was buying her Chanel bags and designer clothing and everything she wanted. He said, I went into debt trying to please this woman, and he married her in the end, and she's giving him a really hard time, right? He's miserable in his marriage because she wants the same standard of giving that he once had before he married her. But now he's not in love with her anymore. He's finding it very difficult to invest in her and buy her the things she wants. He's saying, I can't go into debt because of her. I don't get anything from this woman. I've lost my feelings for her and I can't invest in her. So my marriage is rocky. We have children. And he says, I realise now that I invested in the wrong type of woman because I set the tone, I set the stage for her to always expect that kind of treatment until the end of time. So because he's unable to maintain that type of love, right? His love, which is giving so much and taking loans out to buy her designer things, she's now unhappy because she's expecting that he maintains everything he's done. And this is what happens when you fall in love with someone, especially with their beauty. You do things that you're unable to sustain long term. And when you're unable to sustain it long term, you will always lose the woman or you'll lose the man. Okay? And you also hear of many women getting scammed online when they fall in love with men whom they've never met or they've met a couple of times. These men know that they've love-bombed them enough to fall in love with them and then ask them for money. How many women have been scammed online for money? Because the woman has fallen in love with his good looks, or he could be a complete fake person, right? He's not who he says he is, but she's fallen in love with his charm and his sweet talk and, his pictures, and all of a sudden he's asking her for money. Oh, I've got this problem. I need to have an operation and it's costing me $2,000. Can you please send me $2,000? I promise you'll have it next week. You're such a lovely woman. You're such an empathic woman. I've never met a woman like you in my life. And you're the kindest woman I've ever met. It's just right now I'm going through some serious financial difficulties because my mom, she really needed the money and now I'm left short. So if you can send it to me, that would be great. Great. And this is a test for her. If she sends him the 2,000 and she doesn't know him and there's no mahram involved, right? She's not gone to consult anyone. He is noticing that she is taking this decision to send him money purely because she's fallen in love with him. He's like, oh, she's putty in my hands, this woman. I can keep asking her for money and she'll keep sending it. He takes advantage of her because she's fallen in love with this facade, with this false self that he's presented to her. Okay, so you can see why falling in love with the wrong person and when you're not healed is extremely dangerous for you. And sometimes it's not money that men want. Sometimes it's a visa. And women too, right? You get women who are dying to come to the UK. You meet a woman online from a different country and she manipulates you to falling in love with her so that you can help her get into the country. You marry her and then as soon as you marry her, she's taken off. Or as soon as you marry him, he's gone and married somebody else or he's completely abandoned you because he used you for papers. He used you to get into the country. So a lot of women in this stage of falling in love get scammed. A lot of men get scammed. And that's why you've got to be really careful. Do not put yourself in that situation where you can be taken advantage of because you're not in control of your emotions and your feelings. And the reason why you're not in control of them is because you do not have any self-awareness. Okay, you're not aware of narcissists. You're not aware of people out to scam you. You're not aware of your own issues of codependency. You're not aware of any of that. So this is why I do the work that I do so that you become aware of what you're dealing with and who you are. Okay? It's really important that you seriously understand this. And the love bombing phase or the infatuation phase that you feel towards someone who's highly beautiful and so on is intensified by your qareen. Okay, your qareen now starts working with their qareen because they want you to become obsessed with this person who is not good for you. And this is when falling in love results in you falling down a well you can't get out of, hurting yourself, damaging yourself, and any other negative consequences. Okay, it comes from this type of falling in love. So the symptoms you're going to feel are the following. You're going to lose focus in prayer. You're not going to be able to focus because you're thinking about them all the time. You think about them day and night to the point where you can't function at work. You can't function in your day-to-day life. You're forgetting things and you're not able to sleep. You're not able to eat, especially if they take ages to reply. You're now getting heightened anxiety when you don't hear from them as often as you'd like. And this turns into an obsession and you stop being productive in your day-to-day life and you feel like they're holding you back. You don't see it when you're in it, but they start to hold you back from your work and your potential because all you do all day is daydream about them. And everything you do it with them in mind. So every time you go shopping, you're thinking about all the things you could buy them. If you go to a nice park, you're thinking about them being there with you. You're always imagining them there. It's unhealthy. Okay, it's unhealthy. It means that your qareen is working overtime to get you attached to someone who is not good for you. Because when you are attached to someone who is good for you, you're actually going to find a drive to do better in your life. Right? You're going to be motivated to work harder. You're going to be inspired by this person to actually improve your life, improve your deen, improve your career, improve your finances. You're going to be motivated by them. But when you are in love with the wrong person, everything comes to a screeching halt. Okay? And sometimes you start going backwards. So because you're not eating and you're not sleeping, you're losing weight, right? You're not looking good. You're looking unhealthy. And you can tell that you haven't slept People are asking you, are you okay? Is everything all right? Like, oh, he's just in love. She's just in love. That's not a good indication of being in love. Okay, that's an unhealthy indication. It should be the opposite. You should be glowing. And when you glow with a narcissist, it's only for a short period of time. Very short period of time. Because you're so excited and so happy with all this love bombing, they can't sustain it. It's not in their character to sustain it. They hate love bombing. I'll tell you something. Narcissists hate it because they're lazy and they have to go out of their way to capture their victims. So they have to be put in this position where they do all of these things, these romantic gestures and efforts to capture you and keep you for a while until they manage to get you emotionally attached to them. They know once you're emotionally attached, it's very difficult for you to break away. You become obsessed. You chase them all the time. You beg them to not leave. Even if they make mistakes, you forgive them and you come back, and toxic cycle, right? Trauma bonding. So they know it's just a matter of time before you become emotionally attached and they ease off on the love bombing because it's tiring for them. They hate it. Believe me when I tell you they hate it. It makes them feel really sick, okay? So you'll feel a glow. Everyone will be like, oh, wow, look at you. She looks so in love. And yeah, for a short period of time. That doesn't last. So if you're finding yourself skipping prayers because you're up all night talking to them on the phone, and then you skip Fajr because you're too tired to stay up for it, if you feel like your deen in general is going down, if you feel like your health is going down because of anxiety and overthinking, you are not with the right person. This is your body telling you something's not right, but your qareen wants you to be attached to them because your qareen needs to get you to the stage where you enter a trauma bond with them so you can't exit easily. Once you enter that trauma bond, it's like being in a washing machine and you can't open the door once it's started spinning. So you have to wait until the entire spin cycle is done to get someone out. And by the time someone comes out of that spin cycle, if they've made it out alive, they're going to come out very damaged and very unwell. And sometimes people will go back into the washing machine for another spin because they believe this is what love is. And they would have got that from their parents and their society. So whatever is the norm is what they will accept for themselves. If they're codependent and if they're narcissistic, if they're empaths, they will know something was seriously wrong with my parents' marriage. I do not want a marriage like my parents' marriage. And they go and pursue something completely different. But codependents and narcissists, when they have lived through a very turbulent marriage that they've witnessed, between their parents, they will normalize that is what love is. Okay, love is toxic. Love is fighting. Love is screaming. Love is throwing things at each other. Love is being nice to each other 1 minute and then being horrible to each other the next. It's normal. And if they don't get it from their parents, they'll get it from Disney. They'll get it from cartoons. They'll get it from movies they watched growing up. So movies and Disney, they normalize falling in love with people's beauty, right? The prince sees this beautiful girl in the forest and he's like, oh my goodness, I've got to have her. And he pursues her. So it normalizes for children that, if you see someone who is nice looking, then that's the most important thing. You should love someone because they are beautiful. There's actually a song called Loving You Is Easy Because You're Beautiful. And it gets people in a lot of trouble. Okay, a lot of narcissistic women in particular believe that they can get away with a very bad character because they're beautiful. And men believe that because they're good looking, they can get away with not being alpha and not being providers and protectors. And they do, for the most part they do. Women who are empathic stay with them because they're good looking and they come from good families. So sometimes it does hinder someone's progress when you have beauty. Sometimes beauty can be a curse rather than a blessing, because if it makes you lazy and if it makes you feel like you can get away with not doing the inner work because people will love you and want to be around you regardless, then it becomes a curse to have so much beauty. And when you attract so many narcissists and so many psychopaths because of your beauty, it can become a curse. You will always end up with the wrong people if you believe your self-value is attached to that. Okay, so don't always be so happy when people fall at your feet because you're good looking. 99% of those people are broken, unhealed, narcissistic, and toxic, codependent. Because even though an empath is impressed by beauty, right, empaths are always drawn to beauty as well, it's not everything. As soon as they see that red flag, as soon as they see your ugly character seep through that beautiful mask you have on, oh, they're out of there. They're out of there. Your beauty means nothing to them at that point. However, narcissists and codependents will see the ugly come out of you and they will still stay. And again, this is something that is romanticized in movies and in music. And that's what they emphasize loyalty to be. So I will accept your beauty and your ugliness. And that's what love is. So people are like, okay, I've seen his ugly side and I'm going to accept that. And he's good looking, she's good looking, then yep, I am falling in love with the right person because no one's perfect. Yeah, no one's perfect. But when you see an ugly side come out of someone, from the beginning they're showing you who they are. And if you're accepting the ugly side, then you're in for a rough ride. Yeah? Washing machine cycle. Turbo speed, 1 hour and 20 minutes. Enjoy the ride. So another issue that comes out from this stage of love is when you become infatuated with someone very quickly, you fall for someone quickly, you develop feelings for them, you don't really know them, you don't know them at all, and you're dying to get to know them, and you want them to give you attention and notice you and fall in love with you as well. What tends to happen here is that you go out of your way to impress this narcissistic individual, and 9 times out of 10 you're not in your authentic self, okay, because you don't believe that your authentic self is worthy of this person's love and admiration. So you mold yourself and change yourself into a person whom they could be impressed by, and this is where you lose a lot of your principles and your values, and you slip into sins. Okay, you start compromising on your deen to impress them. But this doesn't make you feel good, because even if they do fall in love with you and they give you that attention and validation that you crave, you know that they are falling in love with a version of yourself that's not real. You've had to adapt yourself to fit their world, okay, and to fit their character and who they are and their lifestyle. So I've spoken to many codependents before, and they've all told me they were never their true self with the narcissist. They could never be their true self, because if they were to show who they really are, the narcissist would be disgusted with them, right? The narcissist wouldn't like them. They think they're too soft. They think they're too strict, too religious, too this, too that. So in these relationships, codependents have a mask up. They can't be who they really authentically are. And a narcissist has a false self up, because it's the false self who is love bombing you. So you enter a very turbulent relationship. You believe it's love. You believe that all this toxicity and all this chaos and all this coming and going and him taking you back and him begging you and him chasing and him this and him that, you think all of that's love, and it's passion and it's chemistry. You think that is what love is meant to be like, and you find it exciting. You find the chaos exciting. You find the chaos enjoyable to live through. And that's only because you have a distorted idea of what love is meant to be like. Okay? Love is not meant to be chaotic. It's meant to be calm. Love is not meant to be so turbulent. It's the opposite. It gives you sakina. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that marriage is sakan, it's sakina, it's that beautiful harmony, it's that peace, it's that serenity. So if you have the opposite, you're in a trauma bond, you're not in love with this person, and they are not in love with you. It's a two-way thing. Okay, when a relationship is turbulent, it's 2 ways. Because a narcissist is only able to have a relationship with someone who is codependent, or a low-level narcissist who is not as dominant as they are. So the state of a narcissist love bombing someone so heavily because they want something out of it. They want a source of supply. They want long-term validation and praise and ego inflation. When they give you so much of what you want in the initial stages, it's because they want something out of it. They're not doing it for you. It's not love. Okay, they become obsessed with you. Lots of people mistake obsession for love, and they mistake possession for love and jealousy for love. So a narcissist will view most people as objects. So when they capture you, you are now their object, you are now their property. And they don't want anyone else to obtain the supply that they get from you. They want the entire tank for themselves. They don't want to share it with anyone. So they become possessive over their property. It's not out of protection and it's not out of love. So a lot of people, a lot of codependents, they believe that this obsession, possession, and the jealousy comes from love when it doesn't, because they abuse you at the same time. If they're abusive, how can it be from love? Healthy obsession and healthy jealousy and healthy possessiveness feels good. People actually like it because the person is not abusive in parallel to that. So it feels good because it's protective. It feels good because the person is kind and they're loving in the way. They are protective and jealous and obsessed about you, right? Everyone wants someone who's a bit obsessed about them. So there is healthy jealousy and obsession. But when it's from narcissists, you will feel it's suffocating, it's abusive, and it's harsh, and it's like an imprisonment, right? They blame you for everything. If someone looks at you, they get angry at you. That's not protectiveness. That's not being jealous. That's being abusive, because it's not your fault someone's looking at you. And then they punish you for it. They tell you can't go out like this, you can't go out wearing that, you can't go out with, wearing a purple abaya anymore, you can't do this, you can't do that. So it comes from authoritarian jealousy rather than protective jealousy, loving jealousy. It doesn't come from the same place, okay? So a lot of codependents who grew up in families that were toxic will think that this is love when it's not. So this stage of love, if you're in it or if you were in it with someone, is not love. Okay, this person didn't love you and you did not love them. So all the stages I've spoken about so far, it's not love. It's unhealthy attachments and infatuations and attractions and so on. Because they're all selfish, right? It's all a selfish kind of love. I want your time. I want your supply. I want your validation. I want your praise. But you don't get anything in return. You don't get your needs met. So it's not a fair deal. How can that be love when it's one-sided? Okay, really think about it. The majority of narcissistic relationships are one-sided because narcissists love to be put on a pedestal. So even if you do get something back from them, it's usually crumbs, peanuts, in comparison to what you are giving to them and what you're investing in them. So it's borderline slave-master relationship. Some are. If you're married to a malignant narc, you will enter a slave-master relationship for sure. But if you're with a man-child or a woman-child, you'll just get peanuts back, right? You'll get pennies in return for the diamonds you are giving to them to make them happy. Now, the next stage of love is one that follows on from this one, and it's called sharaf in Arabic. And it's a type of love that causes you to become very possessive and obsessed about obtaining what you really want. Okay, so imagine a child wanting this toy, particular toy, that's going to make them feel really good, right, amongst their friends and their cousins. Like, for example, it could be a PS5. They've got to have it. They don't care about anything else. They tell their parents, I don't care if you get me nothing. Just get me that PS5. I will sacrifice all other toys if you get me the PS5. Okay, so that feeling of wanting something to be yours, right? You have it, it's in your hands and it's mine. This is all mine. That's called sharaf. Now, the child can get bored with the toy and they'll discard the toy when it no longer has any novelty. So they want what other people want. Okay, that's what shaghaf is. It's when you have the person everyone else wants, and you have to get that person by hook or by crook. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us an example of this in Surah Yusuf alayhi salam. Okay, if you go to ayah 30, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ نِسْوَةٌ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ امْرَأَةُ الْعَزِيزِ تُرَاوِدُ فَتَاهَا عَنْ نَفْسِهِ قَدْ شَغَفَهَا حُبًّا إِنَّا لَنَرَاهَا فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. So some women of the city gossiped about Zulaykha, and they said, the chief minister's wife is trying to seduce her slave boy. Her love for him has plagued her heart. Indeed, we see that she is clearly mistaken. So we know from Surah Yusuf that she became obsessed with him because he was incredibly handsome. Okay, and she had to have him. This was the man every woman in the city was in awe of. She had to have him. And in her mind, she was like, I will get him by any means possible. So she tried to seduce him. Because back in those days, if you seduce someone and they fall into zina and all of that, you have to marry them, right? That was the rule. You have to marry that person. So she tried to seduce him. She tried to have a physical, intimate moment with him. And he pushed her away and he said, no, I fear Allah. This is not something I'm going to get involved in. And she became more obsessed about him. Okay, she became infuriated that she couldn't get what she wanted. And she decided to create false allegations against him and have him thrown in jail, because if I can't have him, no one can have him. So this is a dangerous type of love, and I wouldn't even call it love. It's a type of desire that you'll have for someone that I will do whatever it takes. I will sell my soul to the devil if I have to get this person. I will take out bank loans. I will, sleep with them, take their virginity to make sure that this person marries me, because I know that she will not be able to marry anyone else as a non-virgin. All of that, right? There are people who will go to great lengths to capture the prize, their trophy, because they don't want anyone else having that trophy. So again, this is not love. This is not love. This is a very unhealthy obsession, and it always ends in a discard eventually. Because once they are satisfied by having you, your discard follows shortly after. Because they've had you. Khalas, that's it. I took her virginity. I married her. I obtained fame because of my marriage to her. I got a huge inheritance because of my marriage to her. And then that's it. Ma'as salama. You can go now. So these relationships are very short-lived when the obsession turns into this malicious intent of sacrificing everything, all my principles, my deen, my relationship with Allah, my relationship with my family. I will sacrifice everything just to have that person, because everyone wants that person and I want to be the one who everyone says, wow, he got the princess, or he got the influencer, or whoever. So you've got to be careful with this. If you're in that kind of relationship, it's not love. And the type of narcissist who does this is usually the malignant type, not the man-child, the malignant. Because they do not have love for anyone. Okay, because they don't have love for Allah or the Prophet ﷺ in the correct way, they can't love anyone. So you'll find that the malignant narcissist, man or woman, will love you in this particular way. It's obsession and very toxic possession. So you are treated like you are their property and their object. Now moving on to the next stage of love, which is ishq. Ishq is actually a very dangerous state of love. And this was narrated by many scholars in Islam because of what it does to someone. Okay? So ishq actually comes from the word ashaqa. And ashaqa means poison ivy. Okay, it's the ivy that grows up walls, and it gets into everything. It gets into bricks, it gets into fences and holes, and it can grow up trees. And if you look at poison ivy that grows up trees, it surrounds it and it suffocates it and it kills the tree. And it also kills plants. So if it's growing behind a flower bed, like of roses, for example, if the ivy gets into the soil, it can kill all the plants in the bed. And it can also kill animals because it's so poisonous. So you've got to be careful with ishq, because the ancient Arabs actually said it was a disease. And the only way to cure this disease is to completely sever the connection. Okay, so you have to get rid of all the ivy so that plants can grow, so that animals don't get poisoned, and so that trees aren't suffocated. Just cut the lot and burn it. Because ivy, when it grows, especially when there's a lot of rain, it grows very high and very thick, and it covers everything. Absolutely everything. It's a real nuisance for farmers and people who have beautiful gardens. They use so many chemicals to get rid of ivy. So this type of love is when someone takes obsession and possession and jealousy to the extreme, but not in a way that is intended to harm someone, but because of their own insecurities. So they have a very deep fear of losing this person whom they have fallen in love with, and they allow their love for this person to grow like ivy. And when this love grows like ivy, you suffocate someone, right? You imprison someone, but you don't do it out of malice. You do it out of not wanting to lose them. You have a fear of losing them, so you want to be with them all the time. You are calling them all the time. You are texting them all the time. You're keeping tabs on them all the time. And this leads to the suffocation and the death of the relationship eventually, because it poisons it. Okay, it's different from sharaf. Sharaf is when you want something all to yourself and it's very selfish and you don't care how you get it. Ishq is different because you believe, as the person who is in love, that you are very genuine, but you don't realize that it's not love. You are so attached to this person because you don't want to be alone. You are the one who is so insecure about losing this person. You are terrified of losing yourself if you lose this person. You believe you become a nobody. How many times have we heard it in movies and love songs? When, I have nothing if I don't have you, and I'm a nobody if I don't have you. If you leave me, I might as well be dead. If you leave me, life is not worth living. I'm a nobody. I'm a nothing. You make me a somebody. Your presence in my life makes me feel good about myself, and it's you who makes life worth living. Okay? This is a real problem. Now, the codependent who clings onto a narcissist for dear life this way, and sometimes it's the narcissist who clings onto a codependent or an empathic person this way, especially if they're a man-child, they depend on you for life support. And your life has no meaning without this person. You have assigned all your self-value to this person. And this type of love can make you lose your mind. Like, you can actually go insane from ishq. And if you notice in Arabic music and Asian music, the word ishq is used positively, because the satanic message in music wants you to believe that this type of deep love is real love. This is true love. Okay, when you're so obsessed, you can't live, you can't breathe without this person. This is true love. Khalas, you have reached the peak of love if you are ashiq. Okay, and this is why the word ashiq is assigned to the jinn who falls in love with you. Okay, the jinn who doesn't want you to get married. The jinn who has an obsession with you. Because it's not a good type of love. It's a love you need to get rid of. It's a love you need ruqya to escape from. You see? That's why he's called the ashiq jinn. because it's a type of love that is crippling. It's a type of love that's dangerous. It's poisonous. You need to go to have ruqya or do it on yourself to get rid of the ashiq jinn, because this is not a jinn you want assigned to you. The way he loves or the way she loves is not good for you. Okay? They suffocate you and they prevent you from living a healthier and better life full of iman. You're not going to have that iman while you're in a state of ishq. You actually enter shirk because you live, breathe, eat, sleep, dream the person whom you're in love with. Okay, this person becomes your whole world. Your entire existence is attached to this person. You forget about Allah. You forget about everything in life. You just plod through life because of your attachment to this person. So if this person was to die, if this person was to marry someone else, if this person was to leave you or disappear or ghost you, it's going to completely destroy you. Completely. You probably won't recover. Do you know how many people have committed suicide because of this? And this is not just in our modern generation, by the way. This was back in ancient Arabia. If you look at the stories of the Arabian poets, like Qais and Layla, okay, if you read the story of Qais and Layla, he's known for being called Majnoon Layla, because he was crazy. He lost his mind over Layla. Okay, in the end, he ended up dying from a broken heart, wandering about in the desert. He starved himself. You can find his story online. His name is Qais ibn Mulawah. He's very famous. There were many famous poets at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and before him and after him, and they were known for their intense poetry about love, and not just any love, about ishq. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ warned people many times against listening to poets, because they distort people's healthy perception of love. There's an entire chapter in the Quran called Ash-Shu'ara, which means the poets. And in Surah Ash-Shu'ara, ayah 224, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ. As for poets, they are followed by the deviants. Okay, people who love their words. Okay, like I said, they wrote intensely about the feelings of ishq, and they believed this was real love. So it wasn't just romance they wrote about, they also wrote about political things and other matters. And the Prophet ﷺ warned people, if you fall into this trap of believing that this is love, then your ending is not going to be an honourable one. You're going to die humiliated, because many of them lost their minds and committed suicide. They went on a strike. They went wandering about in the desert until they died. They didn't have food, they didn't have drink, but they did it deliberately because it was their way of punishing themselves for not being able to marry the woman they loved. Maybe she married someone else from a different tribe. The father didn't allow him to marry her, and he would lose his mind to the point where he just wouldn't want to live anymore. Many of them committed suicide. So that's why there's a strong warning in the Quran against following poets. And poets in our modern day age can also be people who write music, people who write song lyrics about love. Most music that is romantic that we listen to is about ishq and not true love. And I'll come on to true love in a moment. But like poison ivy kills plants and kills trees, ishq can kill someone as well. It's ishq that causes someone to commit suicide and lose their mind and lose any desire for life and just living, right? They don't want to live. They're always depressed. They have very long-term PTSD because they can't get over the loss of someone they loved so much. This is the type of attachment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns us about, right? He warns us about having an attachment to those who are not Him, because you're going to lose those people, but you'll never lose Allah. If you're going to be attached to anyone in this way, then it's best for you to have this attachment with Allah, because Allah never dies. Allah's not going anywhere. You will always have Allah. So you can be as obsessed as you want about Allah. He's not going to mind. But he has concern for us when we become overly attached to someone whom we could lose, because everyone's going to die. People are going to get sick. People are going to lose their feelings. People are going to fall out of love. Allah knows this. So he tells us, don't attach yourselves to people, because attachments like this that are so unhealthy will cripple you and can cause the death of you. Okay, even if it doesn't cause the death of you, it will cause you to lose your mind. Some people have become epileptic. Some people have become schizophrenic because of losing their mind as a result of them losing someone in their life, especially if they couldn't have them. And sometimes people are killed because of ishq. Okay, so for example, a man might be so in love with a woman and her father repeatedly tells him, stay away from her, you can't marry her, you're not from our tribe, and you're not a Muslim, and you're not this, and you're not that, we will not marry our daughter to you. And he insists on continuing his romantic ties to the daughter until he gets killed. You know, back in the day, loads of Arab families, in ancient Arabia, in between tribes, they used to kill a man who did not leave a woman alone when he was rejected. He couldn't leave her alone because he was so in love with her. He had this very unhealthy attachment to her, and it would be the end of him, because the family would come after him. And the only way they could get rid of him was like the poison ivy that needs to be cut, is that they kill him. Okay, many men got killed because of a romantic tie to a woman. So back in ancient Arabia, if a man was known to be in love with a woman, it would cause shame in the tribe, and they would marry her to anyone but that man. And that's why so many of the poets lost their minds, because they got caught. And it wasn't always, sexual or anything like that. Because remember, back in pagan Arabia, zina was normal. But sometimes a woman was caught with poems from a man, and if her father knew who that man was, they'd come after him. And if they didn't kill him, he would be exiled from the tribe or exiled from the area, and he would wander about until he died, because he was so broken-hearted. People back then used to die from a broken heart. It's actually possible to die from a broken heart, and many people have. And this is the result of ishq. Okay, ishq can do this to you. You've got to be really careful. And the way someone falls into this very deep obsession is, again, they become overpowered by either the ashiq jinn, who is assigned to this feeling, this emotion, or because this person has become more important than Allah to you. Okay, so when you fall into shirk, you lose yourself. You really do. And you believe that this is what love is. You believe that like I said, you've reached the peak of it. Because you're experiencing very intense memories, you're playing everything all the time that they've done or said. The dreams you have are constant after Fajr. You cross a lot of boundaries. And what I mean by that is that you will lose all your principles. So when you are so in love with someone to the point of ishq, you will commit zina with no problem. You won't feel guilty. You'll enjoy it because you love them. You will start doing things out of character, and you'll be crossing many red lines because you just want to show this person in any way possible that you love them. What can I do? What can I do to show you I love you? I'm going to give you my soul. I'm going to give you everything that I wasn't allowed to give you to show you how much I love you. I'm going to displease Allah to show you how much I love you. I'm going to put you above Allah to show you how much I love you. Okay? So this is why ishq is poisonous, and why ishq can be the end of you. So it's not love. Okay, there is no love here. It's a very unhealthy obsession that people take to the extreme. And you know it's not love because it takes you backwards. It doesn't help you grow, right? It doesn't elevate your nafs. You don't progress in life. You get stuck in life. And you get stuck with extreme PTSD if you lose that person. And if you don't lose that person, you're always living in a state of fear of losing that person. That's why you cling on so much. So how can this be love? How can it be love? Right? This is imprisonment. You are holding on to someone so tightly because of your fear. You're not doing it for their well-being. You're not doing it for their own good. It's a selfish type of love or desire that causes you to suffer the most. You're the one who suffers because the person you're clinging on to, even though it might be hard for them to leave, but they can leave you. And all of this comes from your qareen. Okay? This is between the qareen and the ashiq jinn. If you are someone who has fallen into ishq, 99% you've got ashiq jinn attached to you. Okay, the ashiq jinn is what makes you like this. And if you listen to Arabic music about ishq, they always assign the word majnoon to ishq. Like there's a popular song right now going viral on Instagram. It's Sammini ashiq majnoon. Like, call me ashiq majnoon. Call me a man who's in love and I'm crazy. So majnoon is always assigned to ashiq because it makes you crazy. It makes you lose your marbles. If you had one marble left, you're guaranteed to lose that one too. And it's not normal. It's not healthy. People will laugh at you. People will look at you like, what's wrong with this person? I'm telling you, Qais ibn Malawah used to be called Majnoon. They forgot his name Qais. They called him Majnoon because he was acting in a very strange way when it came to Layla. So Majnoon is not something good, right? The Prophet ﷺ, he used to get really upset when people would call him Majnoon when he came with the revelations that were given to him by Jibreel ﷺ. The members of the Quraysh tribe would laugh at him and say, he's lost his marbles, he's gone crazy, like the poets. And he would get so upset about it. And Allah sent down a verse to comfort him in Surah Al-Qalam, Ayah 2, مَا أَنْتَ بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ بِمَجْنُونَ. By the grace of your Lord, you, O Prophet, are not crazy, you're not insane. So he said it to him to not worry him. So this is why poetry that is about ishq is to be avoided. And also the music we listen to. Okay, for example, the one that comes to mind is Crazy in Love by Beyonce, right? Most people will know that one. And don't worry, I'm not going to sing it to you. But the lyrics go like, you've got me looking so crazy right now. Your love's got me looking so crazy right now. I'm not myself lately. I've been foolish. I don't do this. I've been playing myself and I don't care because your love's got the best of me and you're making a fool of me and you've got me sprung and I don't care who sees because you've got me so crazy in love. Okay, so here she is singing about ishq because she's assigning the word crazy to it. And this is why music is satanic. This is why in Islam you're supposed to avoid music because it messes with your head and distorts the meaning of love for you. So now you're normalizing it because this is what you are continuously listening to. So you're thinking, yeah, okay, it's normal to not eat, it's normal to not sleep, it's normal to look like a fool, it's normal to go crazy when you're in love, it's normal to be so clingy and so possessive and so like to extreme levels. All of that's normalized in music. And if you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen the music marathon I did to explain to you how the satanic message comes out in modern day music. Okay, so the same way the Prophet ﷺ told people to avoid reading poetry about ishq and all of these haram relationships is the same way he would have told us today to avoid music about romance and love. Now there is music that's nice, right? About love, it's innocent, it's beautiful, but it's becoming more rare to come across now. But even listening to that can give you depression if you're single. Okay, so music will mess with your head in one way or another. If you're lonely, it's going to make you feel sad. If you're married and you're listening to romantic lyrics, you're going to feel depressed because you don't have that in your marriage. And if you're not married and you're looking for a partner, then you will focus on a toxic kind of love that you have normalized through music, through movies, through your parents, through society, and so on and so forth. Okay? Because Toxic culture has also taught women and men that it is out of love you keep your family together even when you're not happy. This is a disaster. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ never said that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never said that. So all these types of love I've been speaking about, they're all toxic. They're not real love. Okay, it's a desire that you pursue in the name of love, because that's how you perceive love. It's not what love is in reality, it's how you have been programmed to understand what love is. So when you become so obsessed about someone and you place them above Allah, you will notice how quickly your life will go downhill when that person upsets you, when that person ignores you, when that person manipulates you and just plays mind games, right? They play mind games with you and it drives you insane. That part of the relationship will drive you insane. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses this in Surah Al-Mujadala, ayah 22. He says, لا تجد قوما يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر يودون من حاد الله ورسوله ولو كانوا آباءهم أو أبناءهم أو إخوانهم أو عشيرتهم أولئك كتب في قلوبهم الإيمان وأيدهم بروح منه ويدخلهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه أولئك حزب الله ألا إن حزب الله هم المفلحون. So Allah says, you will not find people who believe in Allah and the last day having love for those who oppose Allah and His Messenger, even if they were their fathers or their sons or their brothers or their kindred. Those are the believers who have been decreed within their hearts faith, and Allah has supported them with a spirit from Him, and we will admit them to gardens beneath which rivers flow, wherein they abide eternally. Allah is pleased with them, and they are pleased with Him. Those are the people of Allah. Unquestionably, the people of Allah, they are the successful. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you here, He's warning you here, that if you love those who do not love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ, and you are now falling into sins, trying to impress this person whom you love because you're trying to keep them, and they're okay with it, they're watching you deteriorate, they're watching you go downhill, they're watching you lose your deen, then you are not considered to be a believer in this case, okay? Because you should not be loving anybody who opposes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ. So if you have affection or love or desire for someone who doesn't have deen, has no respect for Allah, no respect for the Prophet ﷺ, then your iman is in question. Okay, I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you this because this is what Allah said. You exit the fold of being a believer. You don't exit the fold of being a Muslim, but you exit the fold of being a believer, because our loyalty belongs to Allah and not to other people. Okay, it belongs to Allah first, and then the Prophet ﷺ, and then other people. So if those people do not have loyalty to Allah, you are in love with the wrong people. Okay, look at the people in your lives whom you're very attached to and ask yourself that question. Okay, is it ishq that's keeping you with them? Is it an unhealthy attachment that's keeping you with them? Is it sharaf, the same love that Zulaykha had for Yusuf alayhi salam? Only you know. Okay, but this is Allah's warning to you, that if you love these people who do not love Him, you can't be a believer. You can't be. It's not possible. Because the believer loves whom Allah loves, and they disapprove of those whom Allah disapproves of. So to fix this, you need to cut the ivy. Okay, you need to cut this person out. And sometimes you can't cut your relationship with this person, but you can work on cutting your attachment to this person until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rescues you. So if you're in a situation like a marriage that's difficult to get out of, then you need to start by cutting your attachment, because if your loyalty lies with a problematic husband or wife who has no deen, no love for Allah, then you're going to get dragged down with him or her. So you need to really maintain your faith by cutting that attachment and shifting your attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this takes me on to explaining what ishq is when it's abusive. Okay, now you'll get this with the malignant narcissist. The malignant narcissist will claim to love you and claim to do everything in your favor, but their love is so abusive. So unlike the previous type of ishq, where you'll be spoiled with gifts and you'll be showered with attention and all of those things until it's so overwhelming, whether you're receiving it or you're giving it. This is different. So the narcissist is telling you they love you, but they're abusing you at the same time. So they're telling you that they can't divorce you. They won't divorce you. They absolutely refuse to do that. But they're beating you and they're disrespecting you and they're shouting at you and screaming at you and they're being a complete monster at home. Now, when you ask them, how is it they love you when they're treating you like this, they shut you down by telling you that I show my love to you by providing for you. What more do you want? I pay for the house, I pay for the bills, I pay for private tuition for the children, they go to a wonderful school, I pay for your maintenance, I pay for your salon, I pay for this, I pay for that. What more could you want? That's how I show my love. I show my love in providing. So he uses his responsibility to manipulate you into believing he loves you because he's providing. He has to provide anyway. He wanted to be a husband. If he wanted to be a husband, that comes with the responsibility of being a provider. So yes, men do show their love in that way when they're generous, not when they provide. It's not a favor upon you that they provide for you. It's a duty upon them that they provide for you. Now, if they're generous with their money and they do wonderful things for you with it, then that's how they show their love through it, okay? So it's a different type of love that comes through generosity, but it's genuine. So he's not doing it with an agenda. He's not doing it to get something out of it. It's a part of his nature to be like that, okay? So he's not intoxicated with love. He's not drunk on love like the previous ashiq, yeah? The previous ashiq, like the poets, will become so intoxicated. And again, that's why it's so poisonous, because being drunk on love, where you are not thinking clearly, right? You're not thinking straight. You're all over the place. Your mind is always all over the place. It's like you've been intoxicated by poison ivy. And so you don't know what you're doing most of the time. The malignant narcissist knows exactly what he's doing or what she's doing. Okay, they know exactly what they're doing. So they will use what they have to do as a husband to manipulate you into believing they love you. And that's why men in particular, they always say, I show my love through providing for you. I do this and I do this and I do this. Okay, but you're meant to do that. And you have enough money to take the children to good schools. You have enough money to get this big house. You have enough money to buy this nice car. I never asked you to do it. That's what you want. He's doing what he wants, but he's telling you that this is love and you need to shut up because it's all in your head. But he's abusing you at the same time. And that's the strongest trauma bond, because you are starting to doubt yourself now and you're thinking, am I going crazy? Am I the one who has got all this wrong, this whole marriage thing wrong? Am I the one who's being ungrateful? Am I the one who is abnormal in thinking that this is not okay? Everyone else seems to be getting on with it. So it's confusing because they act like they love you and they have ishq for you. And when they act like they have ishq, their jealousy goes to the extreme, their protectiveness goes to the extreme, their control goes to the extreme, and their obsession and possessiveness goes to the extreme. They're always obsessed about you, possessive. And he keeps telling you, this is love. I love you. That's why I'm like this. I'm very jealous over you. That's why I act like this. I am very protective over you. That's why I'm very controlling. But actually, he's being abusive and he knows it. He knows he's being abusive. Okay, but he's manipulating your mind into believing that maybe he's just a bit extra in these good things. So they don't love you in the true sense of the meaning. They are abusive, and they are doing it through your idea of what love is. Okay, so they know you like a man who's jealous or a woman who's jealous. You know you want someone who's protective and he's a leader. But when he's in leader mode, he's tyrannical, right? He wants you to obey his every command. He treats you like a slave. But he says, this is me being a husband. This is me taking care of you. This is me doing what's best for you. And you must obey. You must say okay. Otherwise, you're a wife who's going to go to hell. He might lift his hands and pray that Allah sends you to hell if you don't listen to him. And then you panic and you're like, oh God, I don't want to go to hell. Okay, what can I do, Master? What can I do? And you run circles around him. That's what they want, you see. They want your love, but they're not giving it to you. Because your love for them will be more genuine in the sense that you don't want to displease Allah, and that's why you comply with the abuser. So your love is more genuine because you're doing it for the sake of Allah. You see? And that's the asl, that's the source, that's the root of what true love is. When you think of Allah first, before you think of other people. So when you do it for the sake of Allah to please this man, yes, you're doing it with a good intention, but he is taking advantage of that. He knows that very well. And if you don't stop that cycle, that's going to continue for the next 10, 15, 20 years, Habibti. Okay? That's not going to stop. That's going to keep going and going and going because he has figured out your Achilles heel, right? He knows your weak point. And your weak point is that you don't want to displease Allah. And that's why they love religious women. All these malignant narcissists, they love religious women. I've been there. And they will milk this situation. Okay, they will take full advantage of your fear of Allah or your love for Allah, and they will manipulate you and abuse you. So they are telling you Quran verses, hadiths, because they know that when they want to get their way with something, they just pull one out. And they say, if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen to you because the Prophet said X, Y, Z. Allah said X, Y, Z. And he's taken it completely out of context. Completely out of context. That's why they like women who are not educated, and they like women who can't stand up for themselves, and they like women who are God-fearing. Because this works on them, right? Women who are awake are their worst nightmare. I would be the worst nightmare for a man like this now. Because when you have self-awareness, you will never accept it. You will never accept to be disgracefully manipulated with Islam, which is a beautiful religion, in this way. To degrade you and make you a victim for life. Okay, they want you as a long-term source of supply, and this is how they control you. And then when you complain about them not loving you, if you go to a mediator or your local imam, he will say, but I love her. I can't leave her. I don't want to divorce her. And you're looking at him thinking, excuse me? You just slapped me yesterday, or kicked me this morning, or called me names, shouted at me, screamed at me. For what? For nothing. For something so stupid. Like there's not enough sugar in your tea. You say you love me and you don't want to divorce me, but they'll put on a show. The malignant narc will put on a show in front of other people. He might cry. He might beg. I don't want to leave her. I don't want to divorce her. I love her. She's the love of my life. Look what I've given her. I've given her such a wonderful life. What other man can do this? If I didn't do this for you, you'd be on the street. I took you from a poor family. I gave you a wonderful life. I upgraded your life. I did this. I did that. You wouldn't have dreamed to see a life like this. Because if I wanted to, I could have sent you back to your tyrannical father. We know that you wanted to escape his home. We know that you wanted your freedom. Do you want me to send you back there? No, I didn't think so. So you have to shut up and be grateful. That's how they show love, right? They say it's love, but it's not love. It's abuse. Because these malignant narcissists do not know how to love. Because they don't love Allah and they don't love the Prophet ﷺ. So what they say is love turns into a nightmare, a complete nightmare. When they get jealous, it's a nightmare. When they become controlling, it's a nightmare. When they're suffocating, you get depressed. Life with them is unbearable. okay? And they live life on their terms. So if you want something out of the marriage, they won't give it to you. Everything has to happen on their terms because it's a slave-master relationship with the malignant narcissist. Okay, you're there to obey and serve and borderline worship them. Okay, because these people will not declare it out loud, because that would be shirk, right? That would be a declaration of shirk. But they expect you to treat them like someone to be worshipped. And they tell you that that kind of compliance and obedience and silence and not standing up for yourself and being quiet when they're abusive, that is how you show love to them. They reward you with that kind of behavior. So now you feel like, okay, I'm doing something good. I've earned his pleasure because I've had to stamp all over myself in order to get a good mood out of this man. Okay, see, it's so toxic. The malignant narcissist is the most toxic person you will ever come across, whether that's your parent, your sibling, your son, your daughter, your husband, your wife. They're the worst. They're the worst people to ever live with. My ex-husband was a malignant narcissist, and it was hell on earth. But they do tell people they love you, and they tell people that they would do anything for you, and that they would never divorce you, and that they're with you to the grave. They never want to divorce you because you are a perfect source of supply. You are easily controlled and manipulated, and it's easy for them to just keep you, then go out and find someone new who will accept all of this. Okay, because it's getting harder now for narcissists to find people like that who are naive and don't have awareness, right? It's hard. So they'd rather hold on to what they have than lose their long-term source of supply and struggle to find someone who will accept all their trash. Yeah, accept this attitude and the way they are. It's too much hard work for them to love bomb someone all over again and this and that. They can't be bothered. They want their long-term source of supply and they will declare that they love you. But the most toxic form of ishq is the declaration of love with abuse. Because it's these people who turn you into slaves. Because they don't care about your needs, your emotional needs, your psychological needs. They don't care about any of that. Because it's about them. And you might be married to someone who dresses very well, drives a very nice car, but you are always in shabby clothes. Right? You're the one who never looks good. You're the one who always looks run down because you are constantly in servant mode, slave mode. You're running around getting everything done for them to be put on the pedestal. So they are always in the favourable position and you're the one who's run down. You feel like a maid. You feel like a slave. You feel like a driver. And you have no self-love. You have no motivation to do anything for yourself. He's not investing in you. He just wants you to accept that it's enough that he's providing. And you have to say, Alhamdulillah, that he's given you a few, coins extra every month to shut you up. And when it comes to women, they might tell you, be grateful that I'm sleeping with you. Be grateful that I'm cooking your meals because other women don't do that. And then you go and ask your friends who are married to narc women, and then they tell you, yeah, she's right. My wife doesn't sleep with me. My wife is always manipulating me. She's always screaming, always shouting. They're complaining about their narcissistic wives to you. So now you're thinking you've got it good at home, right? Continue being a slave because you've got it good. So when you go and ask for advice from men who are married to narc women, you are more likely to stay in a toxic trauma bond with that woman because of what you're hearing. So you normalize the abuse at home. And she knows this very well. Okay, she knows very well that if she gives you more intimacy and she cooks more meals for you than other narc women do, you're going to stay put. Even though it's basic minimum, these are her duties. She wanted to be a wife. This is what she needs to do. It's not a favor upon you. It's her duty because she chose to enter this relationship, and this relationship requires these duties and responsibilities. So they use the basic minimum to manipulate you and get away with not doing anything for you. And then the person who is the victim, they stay in this relationship out of fear and they're confused. They've got one foot in and one foot out. They don't know what's right. They don't know what's wrong. They have no idea what they're doing. Is this love? You answer me. Now, when it comes to the narcissistic man-child or woman-child, someone will be confused as a result of what the family of the narc man-child or the woman-child is telling them. So, for example, their family might come and tell you, ever since you married him, he's been a much better person. You've helped him heal. He's more pleasant to be around. He comes to visit me now. If this is his mother, she will tell you he's nicer to her. He calls her more often. He's more jolly. He's doing this and he's doing that. But at home, you're suffering with him. You're suffering because he's not being a man. And you are the one picking up the pieces. And you are the one taking on his duties because he wants to be mothered, right? You're turning into his mum, or you have turned into his mum. You're really fed up with him. But what's keeping you in the marriage is the validation you're getting from his family to show you, and they're doing this on purpose, by the way, to keep you with him. They want you to know that your self-worth is attached to him getting better. So you feel good about yourself and you're thinking, okay, if he's getting better, then Allah will reward me, right? I'm helping this man become a better man. His relationship with his family is improved because of me. His relationship with his mom has improved because of me. I need to stay for the sake of Allah. If I leave him now, it's going to be a problem. Apply the same to the narc woman child. Okay, they might tell you, she's much better. She's calmed down. She's not as angry as she used to be. And she's much more respectful. You know, she dresses better. She does this, she does that. I've seen her pray now. She never used to pray before she married you. They'll say the same about the man-child. He never used to be religious. Now I see, mashallah, he's going to the mosque. It's all because of you. When they know you're on the brink of leaving and you're complaining about him and you're really fed up, they will give you so many of these compliments to keep you with him. Okay, that's not love. That's not love from him or her or their families. Okay, their families will always be the flying monkeys who will do everything they can to keep you with him because they don't want him back. They know you are the person, the one person who can stabilize him. They've not met anyone who can stabilize him. They will tell you you're the best thing that ever happened to him. You're the best person to come into his life and do this and do that and help him with his deen and help him with his career and help him get back on his feet. You've helped him start a business. You've helped him dress better. He used to look like a hobo. Now he looks all right. You know, you've helped him get rid of that disgusting tattoo. All of that, they're going to praise you for it. They're going to praise you. And that's going to keep you in the relationship because you're feeding off that validation. Are you staying for love or are you staying because it now feels good that you are the one who has a huge hand in helping someone improve and heal and get better, even though you're still suffering in the marriage with him? Hearing that validation gives you the drive to continue with this man-child or this woman-child. Okay, hearing the validation from his friends or her friends and the neighbors and, oh, you're such a wonderful person. You know, I've never seen him so happy. And so on and so forth. So you feel an obligation to continue with him or her for the sake of Allah. Again, this is genuine love from you for them because you're doing it for the sake of Allah. Allah's come first in your life in the sense that you're doing this for this man or for this woman to help improve their life. But you've got to ask yourself, what are you sacrificing? What is the price you are paying for this? What is it costing you to stay in this marriage and improve someone else's life when your life isn't getting better? You're not progressing. You're not growing. You're not elevating your nafs. You're the one who's miserable because you're parenting a grown adult. So ask yourself, is that love? Is that self-love? Or is it because I'm getting something out of this situation that makes me feel good? If you had a family or if she had a family that weren't supportive and they weren't kind to you, they weren't loving, and they told you that you're useless and, you know, he's had better, would you stay? Would you stay for the sake of Allah, or would you leave? These are questions you have to ask yourself. And if it's selfless love, empaths will have selfless love. They will stay in a marriage because they want someone else's life to improve and they've neglected themselves. Is that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have wanted for you? And when I say for you, I mean as a believer. Okay, as a believer, are we meant to invest so much in someone and we forget ourselves? No. Our nafs has a haqq over us, has a right over us to be looked after and to be taken care of. And we also have rights from people to be fulfilled. So when we're married, we have a right that this person takes care of us and respects us and fulfills their duties towards us and becomes the man or woman we need them to be. So if you are neglecting those rights that are due to you, can you be a true believer or not? You can't be, because Allah has already told you about the rights that are owed to you. So if you're not taking them and you're giving them up, you're giving up something that Allah knows you need. Okay, and that's when you suffer. When you give up the rights that are due to you because you want to keep the peace and you want to keep this marriage going, and because everyone is telling you what a wonderful woman you are or a wonderful man you are for keeping this marriage together, and you're enjoying that validation, you can't be a true believer if you believe that by giving up the rights that are due to you, you are doing something good for the sake of Allah. On the Day of Judgment, Allah will say to you, you gave up the rights I gave you. You thought you could do better and you could make a better decision for your life by giving up your rights. And what did you get at the end of it? Nothing. It was your decision to give up your rights. And when you give up your rights, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just allows you to face the consequence of that. To show you that when you neglect your nafs, you will not end up in a good place. Especially when that narcissist reverse discards you at the end of all of that, goes on to the back burner supply or a new supply who is nothing like you, and moves on like they never even had a relationship with you, like you never existed. Boy, is that going to hurt. But boy, is that going to teach you a lesson about never giving up your rights ever again, because your nafs has rights over you. And when you neglect the rights that your nafs has, you're going to experience a reverse discard, a brutal discard. You're going to experience a divorce, and you're going to feel despair and depression, because you're going to think about everything that you invested in this person and you got nothing back from it. Like 20 years I spent with this person and I got nothing out of it. He just moved on to a woman he was in love with 20 years ago, or he moved on to a new supply, or she got remarried as soon as her iddah period ended to someone wealthy or someone she used to know. That pain is the consequence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to let you face, so that you understand that there is no such thing as being selfless in relationships. Yes, it's good to be generous, it's good to be giving, but you have to get something back, because if you don't, it's not love. It's not love. These people are taking advantage of you. These people are sponging off you. They are using you to elevate their own nafs while yours gets dragged down. Okay? Bear that in mind. That's what happens when you are in love and when you marry the wrong people. So it's 2 hours and 23 minutes. So I will try to wrap this up before the 3-hour mark. I'm so sorry. But there's just so much to pack into this for you to gain the best understanding possible. So I'll move on to what the true understanding of love is. Everything I've spoken about until now has been the toxic understanding of love. All right, none of it's real. None of it's true love. And we know this because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives us the definition of love in the Quran. Okay, and so does the Prophet alayhi salatu. So in Surah Ar-Rum, Ayah 21, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. And one of His signs is that He created for you spouses from among yourselves so that you may find comfort in them. And He has placed between you compassion and mercy. Surely in this are signs for people who reflect. So the people who reflect are the believers. So when Allah says, I have created for you spouses from among yourselves, He means from among the believers. Okay, because the believers are the only people who can find comfort in each other and compassion, love and mercy. So the people who reflect are those who understand the different types of toxic love and that Allah has provided this type of love in marriage for people who are aware of what's going on. They are aware that ishq and shaghaf and attachments to other than Allah, they're not going to lead you to a good place. So Allah says, I invite you to this relationship that is loving and it's comforting and it's merciful and it's compassionate. Right? I'm inviting you to this because you are people who understand. You are people who think. You know that this is healthy and you know that that's toxic. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us about the poets being misguided. He's told us about women like Zulaykha. He has told us about people who have strong attachments to those other than Allah. He's told us about all these different types of people. So when He described marriage, He described it as a sanctuary away from all that toxicity. And it's for the believers. Only believers can have this type of marriage. And that's why when you look at the marriages of narcissists with codependence and toxic codependence, they're always chaotic. They always fail. They're always miserable. They're always depressing because this version of love is alien to them. They don't understand that this is what healthy love is. Healthy love is calm and it's peaceful. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to understand that if you do not feel comfort in your marriage, if you don't get compassion, if you don't get mercy, if you don't get love, so mawadda, like I said, it's that very deep, nurturing love. If you don't get that in your marriage, you're not in the marriage of believers. And there's a hadith narrated by Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, where he reported that the Prophet ﷺ said, تزوجوا الودود الولود إني مكاثر الأنبياء يوم القيامة. So the translation of this is, marry the loving and the fertile, so that on the day of judgment I will have the most followers of the believers from among the prophets. Okay, so marry the fruitful to increase the believers. Now, some scholars have differed on this because you can't tell if someone's going to be fertile or not, right? You meet a woman, she could be young, but she doesn't have children, like Aisha radiallahu anha. And you might meet a woman who's in her 40s and 50s and she might be the one to give you children, like Khadija radiallahu anha. So some scholars said that it's not the correct understanding to say fertile, but to actually marry someone who is very loving and giving and wants children. Okay, so you need to marry someone who loves children, who wants them, and they have the capability of being very loving parents. Okay, that's the better understanding of this hadith, because like I said, you wouldn't know if someone's fertile or not. So when you marry the loving and those who would be wonderful parents, then you are contributing to the ummah because you are increasing it in believers. So the Prophet ﷺ doesn't want us to marry just anybody. He wants believers. Okay, he doesn't just want Muslims, he wants believers. Believers are more valuable than Muslims. Okay, so you might be a Muslim, but you're not practicing. You might be a Muslim, but you're not a believer. So the believer who is Muslim is the most valuable person to the Prophet ﷺ on the Day of Judgment. So he wants us to have more of them. He wants us to marry the loving and the ones who love children to increase this ummah. And if we can't have children, that's not our fault. But we can do so much to increase the believers in the world, right? There are loads of things we can do. But the word wadud, when the Prophet ﷺ said, تزوجوا الودود, al-wadud comes from mawadda. Okay, it's the same type of love. So when you marry someone who is wadud, then you will have mawadda in your marriage, because they are investing that love into the relationship that's already within their hearts. And mawadda is not a love that anyone can have. Okay, it's a rizq. If you have that loving heart, it's a rizq. And if you have mawadda in your marriage, because you have a loving heart, that's a rizq. And we know this from the hadith narrated by Aisha radiallahu anha, when the Prophet ﷺ said to her, إِنِّي قَدْ رُزِقْتُ حُبَّهَا. When he was talking about Khadija radiallahu anha, he told her that I was given the rizq of Khadija's love in marriage. So Khadija's heart was so full of mawadda. It's, like I said, it's that deep love. It's very nurturing. It's very comforting. It's a mix of so many different things. It's maternal, it's romantic, it's intimate, it's everything, all in one. So you find this love in people who become your best friend. And that's why Khadija radiallahu anha became his best friend, because she had everything he needed with this love, with this mawadda. And it's because she is wadud. Okay, she has that in her character, she has that in her love. This was a rizq that came to her from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you make dua and you pray for rizq, like a good husband, a good wife, money, a good career, pray for the rizq of a heart that is full of mawadda. Because when you do that, you will be given opportunities to love Allah and to love the Prophet ﷺ and to prioritize them and sacrifice for them and treat them both as your best friend. You will be making a full circle, because the only people who have mawadda in their hearts are people who love Allah more than everyone and who love the Prophet ﷺ more than everyone. Okay, so the Prophet comes second, Allah comes first. When that is established in your life, your faith will get stronger, your relationships with other people will get stronger, your discernment in people will get stronger, you will avoid marrying the wrong people and socializing with the wrong people and associating with anyone who isn't like that. Okay, you will start to gravitate towards people who have mawadda. And that's why empaths, they love to have certain friends, because they have a deep love for each other. Right, believers, when they get together, they have a special type of love. They're not jealous of each other. They're not hateful of each other. They want the best for each other. Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah Azza wa Jal wajabat mahabbati lil mutahabbina fiyya, wal mutajalisina fiyya, wal mutazawirina fiyya, wal mutabadhilina fiyya. Which means Allah Almighty said, my love is assured for those who love each other for my sake, who sit together for my sake, who visit each other for my sake, and who spend on each other for my sake. So Allah loves the believers who love each other. And these believers will always love Allah more than anyone else. And when you love Allah more than anyone else, you do everything for His sake. Everything you do in life will be for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you get with those people, you are on a completely different level. Okay, you start associating with people who really do love you. They love you because they fear Allah in their behavior with you. And they pray for you. And like I said, they want the best for you. So whether you have friends from among the believers or you have a husband or a wife, you're a very, very privileged person to be in that situation. And everyone can get there. Don't feel despair if you're a narcissist listening to this, or if you're a codependent or someone toxic. Don't despair. You can always come back and become a strong believer. But you need to work on your nafs, and you need to work on your programming. You need to unprogram everything you've learned about love. You need to go to therapy, and you need to help yourself deal with your childhood traumas that got you to this place. Okay, do listen to my podcast from the beginning to the end so that you can heal. Okay, they've been created for you to heal. And you'll only heal when you understand. So when you understand what it is you've been through, you will be able to elevate your nafs to the station of being believers whom Allah loves. Okay, Allah will be pleased with you and you'll be pleased with Him. But it does involve a lot of work. You can't be lazy about it. You've really got to put the effort in. And even if you're a narcissist, you can elevate to becoming an empath. You can do it. So this is what real love is. When you love each other for the sake of Allah, and you always think of Allah first, and you love whom He loves. Okay, so if you're married to someone and you know Allah loves this person, take care of that person, honor that person, treat them in the best way possible. This person is a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the creation of Allah. If we are told that we cannot torture prisoners of war, even though they're enemies, then imagine how Allah would be so upset with you if you were to mistreat and torture His beloved. If we can't torture the enemies who are captured in war, we're forbidden from it. It's haram, because even the enemies are creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, even they are creations of Allah. It's better for them to die a quick death than be tortured. So being tortured in Islam is completely forbidden, even for the enemy. Okay, so a believer is very well looked after by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you harm a believer, you best believe you're going to get that coming back to you in this life and the next. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends angels to protect the believers. So if you harm or abuse or belittle or degrade a believer in your lifetime, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. Okay, don't take it lightly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves these people the most. And the people whom He loves the most are the most protected. And the most protected have the highest level of nafs. And this is why narcissists get affected by the empath. Okay, the empath believer has a positive effect on the narcissist. A narcissist will not be affected by a codependent, but he or she will be affected by a high-level empath believer, because you give them hope, even if they never say it to you. You make them believe in good people. You give them hope that there is good in this world. And that's why you'll see glimpses of their human side now and again. So the empaths, they always say to me, but I'm sure he loved me. He did things for me that showed me he was genuine. And they're talking about the narcissistic man children here or the women children. And I say to you, yes, because you will see their human side come out. A part of them wants to be saved because their soul is dying from being neglected. Okay? You have a soul that connects you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the most tyrannical person will have a soul connected to Allah. And that's why people search for the meaning of life. They search for a higher purpose. They search for a creator, because their soul is directing them towards the search for that. So the soul of every narcissist will start to awaken when they're around an empath believer. And that's why you'll find that you'll get moments when the narcissistic man-child or woman-child, they will want to do things for you out of genuine love. But it's rare. And it's only when you don't ask them for it. Okay, they will want to do it on their terms and what they want to do. So you will see glimpses of it. You will see their vulnerable side come out. They will talk to you about their childhood trauma. They will see you as their best friend, because your empathic believing side is what's healing them. And they can't make sense of it. They don't know where it's coming from. They have no idea how you're able to do that with them. That's why they're like a child with you, because they feel safe. They feel comfort. They feel mawadda. There's compassion. There's mercy. You have that in your heart for them. And they feel it. That's why, eventually, when the narcissist reverse discards you and they walk away, they do it because it's too overwhelming for them. They don't know how to deal with these feelings. And they don't want to mess it up. They know it's going to end. They know they can't maintain it or sustain it, so they leave. But you are the person they'll never get over, because they can never explain how they felt like they were healing, genuinely. And that's why you'll see glimpses of love from them now and again, because we're all human. We're all human. We're not dead. We're not robots. The malignant narcissists know they're too arrogant. They're way too arrogant to be healed by someone else. They have way too many jinns around them and qareen influence and God knows what to even look at you as someone who can heal them. They're jealous of you. They look at you and they hate that you are a believer. They hate that your nafs is so much more elevated than theirs, and they want to cripple you. So unlike the man-child, you won't see the vulnerable, childish side come out from the malignant narcissist. You won't see it. They're too arrogant, they're too haughty, and they are too stubborn. Okay, they are solely focused on destroying you. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blinds them to your goodness, and that's why He rescues you from the malignant narcissist. But Allah gives more of a chance to the man-child or woman-child because Allah knows that if they were to spend more time with you, they could actually heal, but it's their choice to not put the work in to keep the marriage together or to keep that relationship going because they are lazy and they don't believe that they can actually, do anything good with their life. They always think about everything that they've put people through before, and they always believe they don't deserve the empath because they believe they're bad people. And they might even say it to you. They might say, I don't deserve Allah's love. I don't deserve your love. I'm not a good person. I've done bad things in my life. I've done this and I've done that. Sometimes they won't tell you what they've done, but they'll tell you that they know they're not a good person. They'll tell you, I don't think I can be forgiven because I've done too many bad things. And it's what they've done to other women. It's what they've done to other people. Maybe, again, they're closet gay and they've not told you and they've deceived you and they feel bad about it. And they say, no, I could never be forgiven by Allah. You don't know me. You don't know what I've hidden from you. You don't know what I've done for me to not deserve this. So when they walk away with full conviction that they didn't deserve the mawaddah that you were to give to them. Now, if your love was selfless, if you're an empathic person on a high level and you did it from a selfless level, knowing that you can heal this person, that will come to you in another person. That love you gave will come back to you via someone else. Someone who's going to appreciate it, someone who's a believer, someone who's ready for you. That person will come into your life and give you the love that you never received from someone else. That mawaddah will come from another man or another woman. I promise you, it'll make a full circle and come back to you. However, with the codependent, you need to work on yourself, because when you fix people and heal people, you do it for yourself. You don't do it for that person. You do it so that you feel good about yourself. Okay? And a narcissist, as we know, they do it for supply. So you will know the difference between someone who genuinely loves you and someone who genuinely doesn't. Okay? And someone who genuinely loves you as well, the same way we love other people who are believers, we will also love what they love. So I remember a hadith about the Prophet ﷺ when he found a necklace of Khadija radiallahu anha, and he cried when he saw it after her death. Like, even a necklace you will love. You will love the smell of their clothes and the way they hum in the kitchen or sing and the way they just do things. Right? You'll love everything about them. That's mawaddah. When you reach that level of love and that person becomes your best friend, your closest friend, without it being an unhealthy attachment, because you already know that everyone will die and this person might die before you. So because your love for Allah is stronger than the person you're married to, you will be prepared for that. You will know that both of you together are working towards a journey that takes you to Jannah, so you don't worry about death. You don't worry about separation. You don't worry about loss like codependents do. Right? You don't cling on to someone because you fear losing them all the time. No, you have enough belief to know that everyone's going to die one day. You could lose people. And it's okay. We accept that, right? This is a part of life. This is what we have to accept in the dunya. And we get that comfort from loving Allah first. And when we have that comfort, then we can actually enjoy our relationship. We can enjoy the mawaddah and the peace and the harmony and this very close friendship we have with that person, because that person will feel like home. That's what sakan is. So it's security, it's home. That person will always feel like home to you. Wherever that person is, that's where you'll find home. And that can be your parent if you're not married. That can be your sister, your brother, your child. You can find sakan in other relationships as well. But the sakan you find in marriage is on a deeper level. It's a more beautiful type of sakan, like when you find home in each other. Okay, so whether you live in a mansion or a small house, a small cottage, you're still home with each other. It's still a beautiful place to be when you're together. The Prophet ﷺ used to rush home to Khadija from how much he used to love her company. The value of a person lies in their company. And when that person is your best friend, you always want to be around them. You always want to be around them. That's mawadda. Because these people elevate your nafs. And they make you feel good about yourself. And they help you to elevate your iman. And they're good for your deen. And they're good for your life and your career. They encourage you. They inspire you. They support you. That's what mawadda does. It grows a very beautiful seed within you that helps you flourish in life. And that's how you know it's real love. When you improve with someone, right? You're getting better in all the right ways. You're getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your connection with Allah is deeper. They're helping you with that. They're joining you in worship so that you can bond over these things. They are helping you with your iman in times of crisis and hardships. This is all mawadda. Okay, they're there for you when you need the support. They're there for you when you need protection. They're there for you when you need comfort. All of that comes from mawadda. And that's why not everyone will have it. That's why it's a rizq. And with this mawadda comes mercy. Okay, so Allah says, second mawadda rahmah. The rahmah that comes with this type of mawadda is the mercy of a husband not leaving his wife if she couldn't have children. Or if she got sick, or if he got sick. You don't divorce each other because you're no longer of use to each other. It transcends all of that because you enjoy and love their company so much. You get to a stage where you think, if I can't have children from this person, I don't want children from anyone. Because this person is the love of my life and I'm happy, I'm content with whatever Allah decrees for us. If we do not have the rizq of children, alhamdulillah wa shukr, no problem. I'd rather be with this person than be without them and have children with someone else. There are loads of people like that. And like I said, there are people who get into accidents or they have an illness and it requires someone to nurse them, look after them, feed them, sometimes help them, go to the toilet. All of that comes from mawadda. When you have that mercy and mawadda, you will have that type of relationship with someone. Because you won't get mawadda without rahmah. And you won't get mawadda without sakan. Mawadda always brings with it sakan and rahmah. And you'll be able to maintain healthy boundaries as well. These people are not those who will crush your boundaries or test your boundaries. They won't be abusive. They will always have Allah in mind when they deal with you. Okay, when it comes to their responsibilities towards you, their duties, they always have Allah in mind. They will never withdraw intimacy as a punishment. They will never torture you with verbal abuse, religious abuse, spiritual abuse. You will learn together. You will study Islam together. You will go to lectures together. You will travel together. There's a lot you can do together and enjoy your life. That's what marriage is. This is what real love is. It's peaceful. It's not chaotic. It's not toxic. You will not be crying every night because someone is not responding to you. Someone is giving you anxiety. There's none of that. That's because there's rahmah in this marriage. When you have mercy on someone, you don't do that to someone. You don't abuse them. And this mawadda is so sacred that al-wadud is one of Allah's 99 names. Okay, that's how sacred and special this type of love is. So if you look in the list of 99 names, you'll see al-wadud, which means the most loving, the most affectionate, the most beloved. So we all have a spirit of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within us because He breathed from His spirit into Adam alayhi salam. So we all have a part of that. And if we have mawadda within us, it means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves us enough to be able to give that to someone, because it's a gift. Allah's given it to us as a gift so we can gift it to other people. And you don't gift it to just anybody. This is a sacred type of love whom you only give to believers, because when you give it to a believer, you'll get mawadda back. So this is the type of love that's the purest love. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has called himself al-Wadud, because this is the purest love he has for the believers. So can you see how it all ties in together and how it all makes sense when you look at it that way? It's truly fascinating. And it increases your love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because now you can see when he tells us to avoid certain people and people who don't love him and people who don't love the messenger, we can see why now. Because they are the ones who deprive us from experiencing mawadda. They are the ones who deprive us from having someone invest mawadda into us. We are losing out when we get with toxic people. We are losing out when we don't heal ourselves. And we are losing out on the best marriage we could have, because we do not understand that our understanding of love is corrupt. And that comes as a result of everything we have been influenced and affected by. So anyone can get married. You can get married tomorrow. There are plenty of people who are single and ready to, get out of loneliness. But just because you get married does not mean that you will have mawadda. Okay? Because it's very difficult to meet healed people when you're not healed yourself. Everyone wants an empath. Everyone wants that person who's going to love them and take care of them and invest in them and heal them and all of that. But they're not healed themselves. An empath will not go near you if they feel or see that you're not healed. So you're going to lose out if you're not doing the inner work. Because empaths love Allah so much, they're not going to risk getting married to anyone who doesn't love him the same way they love him, if not more. They're not going to risk it, especially if they were in a toxic relationship before and they learned from it. They're not going to risk it again, ever. Because their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more precious than anything else in the world. That's what has to be protected the most. They need someone who will help them preserve that iman, protect that iman, grow that iman. If someone is not going to come into their life to help them do that, the empath is more than happy to stay single for the rest of their life and only have an attachment and a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a very deep way. Maybe they can't have deep relationships with anyone else. Maybe they come from toxic families. They don't have many friends, but they're content with their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the purest form of love. When you take Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a Khalil, we go back to Khalil. Okay, Khalil is best friend. And remember when I told you about the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, "Verily Allah Almighty has taken me as his best friend, just as he took Ibrahim ﷺ as his best friend." And after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he had three best friends. He had Jibreel ﷺ, he had Khadija radiallahu anha, and he had Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, and all of them are the strongest believers. So if you're single and you haven't found that empathic person to marry, I strongly suggest that you start working on the relationship between you and Allah and cultivating that mawadda between you. Okay, have that mawadda. You don't have to miss out on it. Just because you're not married doesn't mean that you have to miss out on mawadda. You'll get it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You'll get it in your relationship with him. Okay, you'll have that comfort. You'll have that feeling of being home. You'll have that mercy because he will forgive you and he will protect you. And you'll have peace, right? You'll be content with your life. You'll have peace of mind. You won't worry about anything. You have no attachments to anything. You don't fear losing anything because you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even if you're single, you can have the best relationship with Allah. And if he sends you the right person, man or woman, then it's a rizq. And a rizq is not something that we can expect from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a gift that he gives to whom he wills. So if you go back to my previous podcast about single empaths, you will learn from that sometimes Allah doesn't give you the empath in your life because you don't need this person in your life mission. Okay, some people do and some people don't. Some people are only destined to have this strong relationship with Allah alone and not with anyone else. That's why empathic people are often isolated and they're alone in the world. And it's not because Allah has taken away the people and support. It's because Allah wants you to depend on Him and to have that relationship with Him. You're not alone. You'll never be alone. Allah wants you to cultivate that mawadda and that deep connection with Him. So when He takes away everyone from your life because they're all toxic and they're all jealous and they're all envious and they're all hateful people and they're all problematic, full of drama, when Allah takes away all of these people and you're left with no one, you're left with like one friend or one sibling because everyone in your family is toxic, then know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to have that relationship with you. He's chosen you to have that relationship with Him. So invest in it. Invest in it. It's not the end of the world if you don't get married. It's totally fine. If that person comes, alhamdulillah. If that person doesn't come, be content with this relationship you can have with Allah the same way the prophets were. And remember, even the prophets were tested with the death of loved ones. Khadija radiallahu anha was so important to the Prophet ﷺ. She was the first convert. She was the first person who believed in him. She was the first person who comforted him. He grieved for an entire year when he lost her. But he got through it because of his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the best friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's how he got through all his trials in life. Imagine being sent as a prophet to all of mankind. Can you imagine how difficult that task is? But he got through it because Allah was his best friend. Okay, that's the secret. That's pure love. When you have that as a foundation, everything else in your life will fall into place, inshallah. Okay, so the question that I have for you after all this is, did you love the narcissist in your life? Not if they loved you or not, but did you? Because this is a podcast to help you reflect on yourself and how you perceive love and understand love to be, and what you attract into your life because of everything you haven't healed yet. Because it's very easy to always question the actions of someone else and not our own. So we're always asking, oh, did they love us? Did they really care about us? Did they this and did they that? Well, you're not happy with them, or they're long gone, they've left you, or they abuse you, so clearly not. Clearly not. Even if there are glimpses here and there of them being nice people, good people, kind people, yeah, we're human. No one's going to be 100% evil all the time. People will have their soft spots and their vulnerable moments. But the question is, did you love the narcissist, and did you love yourself? And do you love yourself? Because if you don't, it doesn't matter how the narcissist felt. If you do not love yourself, you will always find yourself in the same toxic cycle again and again and again. Okay, you're the one you have to address. You need to really look inside you and ask yourself, why do you care so much if the narcissist loved you or not? Why do you care? You already know deep down they're not good people. And you already know deep down they didn't appreciate you. And that they don't like you because of the way they've treated you all this time. So why do you care if they loved you or not? Why do you care more about them and how they felt about you than how you feel about them? Are they right for you? What's wrong with you for staying with someone like this, or attracting someone like this, or chasing someone like this? Maybe having PTSD and still crying over someone you lost 2 years ago because he reverse discarded you. Why are you still crying over someone like this? You got to ask yourself how you feel about yourself. Is there self-love? Is there self-value? Is there self-worth? Is there a place for Allah in your life? Who is the priority in your life? And what changes do I have to make to make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the priority in my life, and for the Prophet ﷺ to be the second priority, and so on? How can I reach an elevated status of nafs? How can I find the mawaddah that's in my heart and heal from everything I've been through and learn from everything I've been through so this never happens to me again? I need to increase my value so much so that that never happens to me again. And I can only increase my value and I can only love myself when I love Allah more than everyone and the Prophet ﷺ more than everyone. That's the only way you're going to do it. You will never achieve a strong sense of value until you do that. Because everything else you're going to lose. It's guaranteed. You're going to lose everything else. That's all you'll be left with. And if you attach your self-worth to things that you can lose, you'll never be happy. You'll always be depressed. Okay? Let this be a reminder for you also to not follow the ways of the red pill Muslims. Okay, and all these people who are encouraging people to get married in a very degrading manner. Okay, all of these young men who are promoting polygamy, they're promoting quick nikahs, dodgy nikahs, misyar marriage, invalid marriages. These are little boys and little girls who don't understand how sacred marriage is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you understand the concept of mawadda, sakan, rahma, you can see how pathetic it is to just get married to have your sexual needs fulfilled, or to have temporary marriages, or to enter a marriage with someone who is clearly problematic. They can't be alone. All these red pill Muslim men don't know what love is. I promise you, they have no idea what mawadda is. They haven't tasted life with an empathic woman or an empathic man. And so they can't advise you to do the right thing and treat marriage as a sacred relationship that's been gifted to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the believers. So they are marrying each other in this disgusting way because they're not believers. It's as simple as that. Okay, these people are not true believers, so they're getting involved in very strange relationships with each other that are toxic and chaotic because they are not true believers. So when you look at their relationships from the outside, they don't last. They're always having problems. They're always having multiple wives. They're always abusing their wives, cheating on their wives, taking other wives. And the women are always manipulative. They're always demanding, controlling, being tough with their husbands and manipulating them with sex and all of that. For what? It's because they're not believers that they can act in such a degrading, low-class manner. Wallahi, people who have class in their morals, they would never accept to degrade themselves to that kind of level and marry people like that. You just don't. Okay, yes, marriage is there to protect you from zina and all sorts, but if you are a high-value man or woman, you won't even be in an environment where you are subjected to the fitna of zina. You will avoid it as much as possible. That's what believers do. They don't associate with strange people who love to fornicate and all of that. So always bear in mind that the advice they give about marriage is not in your best interests, because they are speaking from the perspective of people who are not believers and they don't hold marriage in the same esteem as empathic people do. So it's because they don't know what it's like to be married to an empathic woman and to have that level of iman, they can't relate to what you say. For them, marriage is convenience. Marriage is a way to obtain quick supply. And that's why they have issues with dowries. They want dowries to be cheap so they can get married quickly and obtain their supply quickly. And they want everything to be as easy as possible by enforcing their incorrect Islamic understanding on women and on men. Okay, so you're not going to find rahmah in these marriages. If you do not comply with them, you're immediately going to get threatened with a second wife coming into the picture. And if you get sick, they're unable to take care of you because they don't have that level of empathy. So you will most likely be reverse discarded until you leave that relationship because no one's taking care of you. Or they're betraying you with a back burner supply who's always been there sitting there in the wings and waiting for her turn and planning for her return. She's plotting and planning as to how she's going to enter this man's life again and destroy your relationship. You're never going to find that with an empath man or an empathic woman. A true believer is not going to worry about these things when it comes to their spouse. You're not going to worry about who they're texting, who they're calling, who they're meeting, where they're going. You're not going to worry about whether or not you can trust them, whether or not they're being sincere with you. You won't have those worries because sakan, mawadda, rahma are present. And this person will give you enough reassurance for you to never worry about any of these things. Okay, they will never act in a way that makes you suspicious, that destroys your nervous system and gives you depression or anxiety. They're just not those people. You won't experience that at all with anyone who has mawadda in their heart to give you. Never. You'll never experience it. So it's just a reminder for you to avoid these young boys who are so immature and these women who think they're so religious and they're pushing polygamy out there and they're pushing all of these toxic relationships out there because people need to get married to save everyone from zina. Oh, please. You don't have to save an empathic believer from zina. They avoid it because they have enough love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to avoid it. They don't even want to go there. It's disgusting for them to even think about going there. So don't be manipulated into believing what they say just because they use Quran verses and hadiths. These are people who do not understand the Quran on a deep level. I promise you, they have gotten so many young men and women into a lot of problems. I mean, the other day I came across a video of a red pill man who was boasting about how he gets people married over WhatsApp in less than 2 minutes. That's not marriage. That's not sacred. You have no respect for the gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us because you don't understand it. You don't understand it. And it would take a lifetime for someone like you to understand it because you have never experienced it and you don't have hope and you don't have iman that good people exist. And because you don't believe that good people exist, you think it's okay to make a mockery of marriage and a mockery of the deen. You don't realize what you're doing. Anyone who promotes marriage in this way has no idea what they're doing. You have no idea about the curse of Allah that's going to come on you because you've turned marriage into something dirty. Right? He was laughing about a man offering a McDonald's meal to a woman as mahar. You know, if he was a true imam, a true ma'thun, he would never, ever accept to get any woman married to a man like that. Even if the woman agreed, he would put his foot down and say, no, not on my watch does a man of that caliber, of that low class and that low standard get to have his way with Muslim women. A true ma'thun will put his foot down and say, no, sorry, you have no respect for the gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given women in dowry. You've got no respect for the nikah ceremony. You've got no respect for anything. You think it's a joke. You just want to give a McDonald's meal in return for your sexual needs being fulfilled. That's super cheap. Super cheap. Not cheap on the woman, but it's cheap on the man who degrades himself and marries a woman with very low standards because he just wants his sexual needs fulfilled. So what does that say about him? He thinks he's all high and mighty, that he can get away with it because he's a man and that he's managed to manipulate her into accepting it because he's good looking or whatever, but actually indicates greatly that he is a very low value man because he does not understand what mawadda is and he has not placed Allah first in his life. It indicates it. It's very clear to see who has and who hasn't. Avoid these people like the plague. I've said it 100 times and I'll say it 100 times more if I have to. These people you avoid like the plague. Because if they show you off the bat that they have no respect for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet ﷺ and the sacred, beautiful sanctuary of marriage, he will never or she will never have respect for you. Never. You are kidding yourself if you think that just because this person appears religious that they're going to fear Allah in you. This person doesn't even know Allah. They don't know Allah. Stay away from these people before they ruin your life. And even if you've got friends like this, cut them off. Stay away from them. You don't need anyone with that mindset. You don't need anyone encouraging you to marry any riffraff to get you out of loneliness. Those are the people who are working with their qareen to destroy the remaining iman you have left within your heart. And you also have to be mindful that these are friends who could encourage you to go back to an abuser because you've been telling them about all the good times that you've had with the abuser. So like I said before, you're going to have good memories with them. And sometimes the highs are going to be really high. And that's why you believe they loved you. Because when things were good, they were really good. And then when things were bad, they were really bad. So these are people who do not know how to balance anything. They don't know how to meet you in the middle. It's either really good or really bad. And that's how they get you into a trauma bond. Okay, so when they are playing with you with two extremes, you get confused, you get self-doubt, and you stay in a trauma bond because you're always telling yourself, well, your qareen is always telling you that they're not a bad person and they do love you because remember when he did this, remember when she did that, remember when it was this good and that good. So you're always working hard to get those good times back. And it's what you think love is. You're chasing your version of love when that's not love, it's an illusion. It's like chasing a mirage in a desert. It's not real. They just do it every time they need to reel you back into a trauma bond or hoover you. Okay, so always bear that in mind, that you may have the best memories with some people who are abusive to you, but it doesn't mean that it's love. So don't allow people to trick you into believing that being patient and going back and keeping a marriage together for the sake of the kids or to not break a home is better than you leaving something so toxic. Okay, don't listen to people like that. You are seriously ruining your life and your chances of living as a Muslim believer when you stay around these people. And these people are already in the narc swamp, so they know people like them, and that's why they can't relate to the empathic understanding of Islam. And remember, they always marry from each other. And because they're all toxic, they see each other as toxic. Men are toxic, women are toxic. So it confirms their belief that good people don't exist. So when they advise people on how to treat their wives and husbands, it's always in the way that a narcissist would treat them. Because they don't come across empaths. Empaths are not in their swamp. Always remember that. They are giving advice on how to deal with the people from their own swamp because that's all they know. And empathic men speak very highly of women because they are married to women who have mawadda in their hearts. So when you come across an empath man or an empath woman, you change your perspective on the opposite gender and you speak about them with love. And you're quick to tell people that good men exist and good women exist because you're living with one. So when you don't live with one and you've never experienced life with one, men will always be toxic and women will always be toxic. That's why the red pill ideology is dangerous because they don't come across empaths. So when they speak about the opposite gender, it's usually very negative. So I hope, inshallah, that's helped you. I hope that's healed you. I hope that's given you some closure, understanding, clarity, the lot. Yeah, I hope it's the whole package for you, inshallah, today. And if you need help with this, if you really want to heal, whether you're a narcissist or codependent, or even an empath, please do drop me an email. My email's below. Or you can submit the form on the website. I have provided the link for that too. And you can sign up for one-to-one counselling and coaching, and we can go through everything. We can go through all your childhood trauma. We can go through everything that's bothering you, all your blockages, everything, so that you can be the person you want to be, inshallah. And if you can't afford counselling and coaching, then just go through all the podcasts I've uploaded. There are so many videos you can listen to that will, inshallah, heal you and help you with your journey. Okay, it's all free. There's no excuse. It's all free content and there's loads more coming, inshallah. So it's there to help you. Take advantage of the resources you have. And if you haven't read the book, please do grab a copy of the book. Okay, it's really going to help you so much. And do like the podcast if it's helped you, please. I would really appreciate it. And do share it with people whom you feel could benefit from this. And do subscribe to the channel if you would like to receive notifications about future content. Right, I need to end it here. Thank you so much for listening until now. If you're still with me, I'm glad you enjoy them and I'm glad you benefit from them. Alhamdulillah. Until the next podcast, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.